1. VE never been very good at getting up early on Saturday mornings. I'm usually wasted after frying my brain all week at school and dad never stirs unless he's working, so there's not much incentive. I used to drag myself up, get a bowl of cereal and hop back into bed, watch music videos and then go back to sleep for a couple of hours. Those awesome mornings have long gone. I wish I hadn't taken them for granted, cause who knows if I'll ever get to sleep in again? Things have changed. I have to get up for work now, and since I walk to work I had to leave way too early. That didn't mean I get up when I should though. I always leave it as late as possible. So, on the weekend that my life took a serious plunge down the toilet, I woke up at 9 after forgetting to set my alarm, leaving me only half an hour to get ready. Unlike what I was about to go through, this was something I could handle easily. First, I made sure I had the fastest shower possible. That's difficult. I love long, hot showers, washing my blonde hair slowly and rhythmically, just letting the steam clear my head and the soap wash all over me. It's probably the most peaceful part of the day. Then, standing at the kitchen counter, I ate my cereal as fast as I could. I rarely eat anything else. That's probably why I'm as skinny as my dad. Sometimes I have a glass of orange drink, not orange juice, it's way too expensive, but most of the time I just wolf down the cereal and slurp the milk from the bowl. I quickly stuck on the same clothes I'd had on the night before. I've got pretty simple tastes: jeans, white t-shirt, suede ankle boots. I wear the same thing almost every weekend. Half the time the t-shirt has fallen off the chair in my room and is all creased, but that's okay. Customers never seem to notice. I never wear much makeup, so that's not a big problem either. I put on some foundation to cover a few annoying zits and some eyeshadow, but I kept it to a minimum. 2. My hair is not even shoulder length and is dead straight, so I put it in a hairband and a couple of clips and was ready to go. This took less than half an hour. Walking to work took longer. But at least I'd be on time. In fact, I'd probably be there before Crass and I'd have to wait until he turned up 15 minutes late looking like a human hangover. I like walking to work when the weather's nice. Not too hot, not too windy, and definitely no rain. If it rained, I had to wake Dad up, and getting Dad up nowadays was not an easy job. I walked through Jubilee Park. Only a couple of people walking their dogs and me. The dogs were all excited, straining at their leashes or running maniacally after tennis balls. Dogs are always so happy. Every time I see a dog I wonder why I don't have one. In fact, we don't have any pets at all. They've all gone and died, including a couple of cats, a goldfish, and a white rabbit called Snow that Mum and Dad bought me for my 9th birthday that lasted about 2 weeks before it escaped and feasted on snail bait next door. Dad found it stiff as cardboard in the neighbor's rose garden. We buried Snow in the backyard and even now I don't like stepping on her grave near the lemon tree. Somehow I think it's bad luck. I couldn't handle a pet, anyway. Who'd feed it? Who'd walk it? I do enough. But it'd be nice to have some company on a weeknight when I'm alone in the house. Although that's not so common anymore. Usually Dad's home, watching TV, or swearing at the buzzing fridge that has been threatening to blow up for, like, the last 2 years. I could hear kids playing cricket somewhere behind the bowls club as I made my way towards Main Street. Saturday is the big shopping day around here and the Rising Sun Bakery was pretty full when I walked past it. Men with the newspaper stuck under their arms were buying coffee and pastries and women loaded loaves of bread into the storage compartment of prams. One mum was trying to coax her son into shutting up by offering him a gingerbread man, but it didn't work. He went on crying and she came out the door with an exasperated look in her eyes. I heard her say, "You can't have a 3. meringue worm this early in the morning, Damien," and he shouted back, "I want a worm. I want a worm." I wondered what my mum did when I was a snotty brat. She wouldn't have put up with it. Primary school teachers are experts at getting kids to behave. I wouldn't have got a gingerbread man as a bribe, that's for sure. My boots were beginning to hurt by the time I reached the store. They're not great to walk uphill in. I reminded myself to charge my MP3 player so I could listen to some music after work for the walk home tomorrow. I finished early Sunday mornings and Dad had stopped picking me up once daylight savings had started. I liked the peacefulness of the early morning, but I liked listening to music to unwind at the end of the shift. The door to the store was opened when I reached it. Right on 10 o'clock. Crass was on time for once. Oh well, I said to myself as I walked in, another day, another dollar. That's an expression I read in a book somewhere that stuck with me. It's like the motto of the casual student worker who does the stuff nobody else wants to for half the pay. I guess there's worse ways to spend a Saturday morning. Boy, was I ever wrong. 4. Pretty much started wishing I was back in bed as soon as Robert Kepler walked into the store. Anything would be better than having to put up with Robert Kepler. He's a seriously weird guy. I'd had my suspicions when I first met him 3 months ago. The 15 minutes he'd just spent taking me scene by gruesome scene through a horror movie called Night Falls confirmed it. He is really, really strange. I still don't know why he felt the need to tell me everything about a dopey horror that I have absolutely no interest in at all. I'd rather talk about Mexican walking fish, and they totally creep me out. I felt like telling Robert to go and tell someone who cares. But I didn't. For some reason I just let him keep talking. Night Falls was kinda lame in parts, but generally awesome, Robert said, his tongue flicking between his teeth and his eyes bulging like ice cream tubs. It's about this old woman, right? Her name's Matilda. She lives way back in the 1800s in a town named Night Falls. Pretty stupid name for a town, hey? But it is a horror movie, you know. I tried to smile while at the same time scan in a pile of DVDs. He didn't seem to get the hint that I wanted him to go away immediately. So this old woman used to pay the local kids for teeth they'd lost, sort of like the Tooth Fairy, yeah. But then these two kids mysteriously disappear, and the locals freak out and they think she's murdered the kids, so they hang her, right? As you do. Sounds pretty freaky, I said, my eyes still on the DVDs I was returning. I could smell his body sweat from the other side of the counter. It was a bitter, sour aroma, like the smell of my dad's work jumpers in summer. When I wash Dad's work clothes I feel the sweat cling to me for the rest of the day until the following morning's shower. Gross. 5. Robert's heavy, knee-length black coat clung to him tight, like cling film. It was about 2 sizes too small. And what was with that coat anyway? It was almost summer and I was only wearing a t-shirt. Everything Robert wore was, in fact, black. His tight jeans with the frayed seams, his faded corn t-shirt and the scuffed Doc Martens with the flapping sole. The worst was his beard, a scraggly thing that didn't seem to know how to grow properly. Patches of it covered up rashes and pimples on his blotchy face. At least he wasn't wearing his hair out this time. It was tied back in a ponytail. If he let it loose, wisps of hair would plaster themselves to his forehead and neck like bits of loose cotton from his t-shirt. Pretty freaky, he said, hell yeah. She's standing in this kid's room. Wouldn't you freak if you pulled back your sheets and saw her standing by your bed? I looked at him and thought I wouldn't freak as much I was freaking out right now. He eventually left. As usual he didn't say thanks or bye, he just suddenly turned and left mid-sentence, mumbling to himself. He talks, but he never talks to you. He never looks you in the eye. It's weird. He definitely has social problems. Crass laughed from where he was standing in the comedy aisle. I'm glad he found it funny. Robert gives me the creeps. I mean, I'm a 15-year-old girl. Horror movies scare me. Grown men who are obsessed with horror movies scare me even more. I picked up the DVD cover. It had two large hands pressed against a red, burning sky, making it look as if someone was trying to escape from a stained glass bowl. There's no way I'd watch something like this. I'd be sticking with Ben Stiller and Drew Barrymore. At least they made me laugh. So, did ya have fun with Robert? Crass asked as he walked towards the counter. Thanks for helping me out there, I replied. I think he's totally strange and you just left me with him the entire time. Crass just laughed. You know he's rented almost 300 movies over the past year? A load of them were horror movies. Really? I didn't even know we had that many. 6. Yeah, I looked at his rental history on the computer. I'm telling ya Stacey, that's almost one every couple of friggin' days. That made Robert the Video Saloon's best customer by a mile. Sighing, I opened the DVD cover of Weirdo Rob's movie to scan and return it. The wrong disc was inside. It was a plain TDK disc with the words, Night Falls, master copy scribbled in jerky, green marker pen. Crass, look at this. I showed him the disc. It's a copy. The original disc is missing. I reckon Robert has burnt the DVD and returned the copy by mistake. Geez, he's an idiot. You reckon he's been burning all the movies? Crass shrugged, picked up the disc and twirled it around his finger. I'll give him a call and ask him to return the original. God, what a total friggin' loser. I bet he copies all those horror movies so he can watch them 100 times each, I said. He probably memorizes the lines. Crass took the disc and put it in the top pocket of his shirt. Hey, wouldn't it be the worst if you were trapped in some old house with Robert? The thought made my skin crawl. I'd totally freak. I placed the empty Night Falls cover to one side and gathered up the rest of the returned videos and DVDs. There weren't as many as there used to be on a Saturday morning. The new Blockbuster store just out of town was slowly taking all our business since it opened last Christmas. Nobody wants to go to a crummy old movie store when you have a brand new Blockbuster. The Video Saloon had been opened in town for 15 years or more, but I wondered how much longer it would last. The December summer holidays were coming up and school finished soon. I hoped I still had my part-time job by then. At least the weekends continued to be busy, mainly because of the half-price overnight offers we had. We were pretty busy Saturday afternoons and evenings, which was good. Otherwise I'd have been outta here. I returned the DVD discs to the shelf in the back of the store. In Blockbuster all the DVDs were kept in their covers on the shelf. Not at the Video Saloon. We didn't have 7. Any security gates, so we had to walk out to the back office and get every disc or video game off the shelf. It took ages. Crass walked out with me to pick up his large green gym bag from the office. Every Saturday afternoon he spent his lunch hour or two at the local gym. I didn't mind. It was peaceful without him, even when he got back so late I didn't get a proper lunch. At least I didn't have to put up with him playing his hip-hop music over the stereo system, and I could even watch the odd romantic comedy when the store was really slow. Catch you later, dude. Hey, maybe Robert will come back to keep you company. Laughed Crass as he walked out of the store. I cleaned some shelves and stood watching a preview disc of a kid's film about superheroes training robots to fight in a gladiator's ring. I couldn't really make much sense out of it. Tops arrived soon after. He often dropped in on a Saturday afternoon when he knew the coast was clear. With Crass gone we could talk in peace. Before Tops could even give me a wave, a customer walked in wearing plaster-splattered overalls and smelling of sawdust. I put on my best friendly, welcoming smile. Can I help you? Yeah, hi. Colin, the young guy who works here, said he a package for me. I'm a bit early, I think, to pick it up. I looked at him blankly. Crass, Colin Sass was his real name, though nobody called him that, said nothing to me at all about having a package waiting for this guy. Don't worry, I can come back, he said when he realized I didn't know what he was talking about. While I'm here, though, he added, my son reserved the cardboard cutout of Jim Carrey you had in the window a while back. Can I collect it? I have my ute, so I'll grab it now. It'll be easier to carry. Did Colin say where he put it? I couldn't remember seeing a Jim Carrey cutout anywhere. Dunno. Maybe in the back somewhere. Jim wasn't out the back. Perhaps down in the basement? That's where most of the cutouts were kept. I'd been working in the video saloon for 3 months and had only 8. Been down to the basement once. Steps at the back of the office lead down to it. The basement was full of old and broken video covers, shelving, tables, posters and broken recorders. It was dark, dusty, and cold. No way would I have volunteered to go down there on a Saturday night by myself. I looked for Jim, making it extra quick and snappy. It was scary down there. I glanced under the stairs, behind some shelving and tossed a few movie posters around. You'd think with a rubber face like his, Jim would be easy to spot. But he didn't want to be found. "C'mon Jim, it's your pal Stacey. Where are you?" I whispered. I made it to the far end of the basement. Nothing. Crass could have put it anywhere. Towards the corner of the basement sat a forlorn old shelf, empty apart from a couple of dusty video covers. I moved it out the way, trying to avoid the dust heaped on the top shelf, peeked over it, and gasped. 9. Behind the broken shelf was a Laminex table. On the table were 5 large stacks of DVDs. There must have been 100 discs, perhaps more. Next to the DVDs lay a pile of glossy color-copied covers of movies, most of which had not even been released on DVD yet. Some, including one with Tom Hanks and another with Charlize Theron, weren't even in the cinemas in Australia as far as I knew. A list of labels with addresses lay on top of postal envelopes on the ground. Unopened plastic boxes of blank DVD discs were stored neatly under the table. On the other side of the table lay a handful of console game discs next to a pile of clear plastic covers and photocopied covers. I recognized one as a favorite of Top's. It looked like a real sneaky little operation. The DVDs and console games were obviously copies. I picked up one of the discs, a film about drag racing in the streets of Los Angeles. It was definitely pirated. Whose were they? My boss Vince was the only one who bothered with anything down here. Crass just threw down empty boxes and the odd poster. And what was with the envelopes and labels? Kids were always swapping copies of DVDs, music, and games at school, but they didn't look like these. They were always downloaded off the internet or in photocopied covers, bought in Fiji or Bali by older brothers and sisters on holiday. I once saw a Spider-Man movie on a pirated disc and had to put up with a lady suffering a sneezing fit and the guy holding the camera moving it down to his lap when he reached for popcorn. Then I'd missed the entire ending when a guy stood up in front of the screen and practiced what looked like Tai Chi. The covers of the DVDs, however, looked like the real thing. I wouldn't have been able to tell the difference from a new overnighter at the video saloon and one of these. Someone had put a lot of effort into them. I took the drag racing DVD and walked back up the stairs. I didn't want to be seen down here. 10. The customer had left when I returned to the counter. Weird, I thought, I'd only been gone a few minutes. "What took you so long?" said Tops. "I'm running out of movies to recommend." I reached out and grabbed his arm in an effort to shut him up. "Tops, you'll never guess what I've just found." A signed poster of Megan Fox. "No. Just take a look at this." I held the pirated DVD cover up to his face. I let Tops take a good look at it, which he did with a slight look of bewilderment, as if he knew he should be surprised or shocked, but couldn't figure out why. "Yeah, it's a revhead movie, like Fast and Furious." "So what?" he said. "Take a look at the disc and cover itself, Tops. Doesn't it look suspicious? Like, it's not really original." There is a mega load of the stuff down in the basement too. It was only then I noticed Overalls man staring at me from the small snack bar on my right. I hadn't seen him when I bounded up from the basement and I thought he must have left. Instead he had grabbed a DVD and a Diet Coke from the fridge and was now staring at me with more than just casual bemusement. "Sorry, I couldn't find the cutout," I told him shakily. "You'll have to come back when Colin is here." He shrugged his shoulders and paid for the movie and Diet Coke. "You could have told me he was still here," I hissed at Tops as the guy walked out. "He probably heard everything." "Where did you think he'd gone?" said Tops. "He was hardly going to run out of the store. Anyway, I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm sure he doesn't either." "I'm talking about pirated DVDs," I said. "Tops, I think Vince may be involved in it big time, 'cause right below our feet in the basement is a big pile of illegal DVDs. All the latest movies as well as covers, blank discs, and loads of envelopes. It's like a small business down there." I gave Tops the drag racing DVD as proof. "And there's games too." 11. "Wow," said Tops, examining the cover and then the disc inside. "Nice cover, pity about the disc. They could have done better than this. Obviously used a simple design program and printer to apply the disc title." He put the disc back in the cover. "Do you think Vince is selling the copies? Or perhaps he's renting them out to customers? I don't know, but there's a lot of movies down there. Man, Vince must be stupid. If the police find out they'll shut the video saloon down for sure. Then I'll have to work at the chicken shack for $6 an hour." I pulled at my blonde split ends. "Do you think we should tell?" Before Tops could answer, Vince Guerrieri, of all people, walked into the store. Tops made himself scarce and investigated the latest release section. Not a good look to be talking to friends when the boss walks in, and it wasn't the first time he'd caught Tops and I gossiping. Vince looked stressed out. He had very little hair and the worry lines stained into his forehead like the ochre swirls of an Aboriginal art painting seemed out of control today. "Where's Colin?" he asked. "Gone to lunch, Vince. I don't like him leaving you alone." "I told him before," he snapped. "Vince always treated me as some little girl who couldn't handle herself without a guy around. It's probably why he'd never let me work alone, which sort of defeated the purpose of hiring cheap labor. Sure, he paid me nothing, but he had to pay Crass to look after me on a Saturday afternoon." Then he looked around the empty store. Tops was the only one in it. He was pretending to read the back of a Battlestar Galactica TV series cover. "So, the joint is empty again," Vince said. "Every day is slowly getting worse. I should get you a microphone and make you spruik for customers outside." I wouldn't know what to say. It'd be a disaster. 12. "Hey, my cousin Frankie is missing his 2 front teeth. Having a conversation with him is like talking to a wind tunnel. But he stands outside his restaurant and drags in 300, 400 people a night. Why couldn't it work for us?" I didn't say anything and just let him have his whinge. Then I saw that Vince had the pay envelopes in his hand. Boy, did I love those little white envelopes. Even more than Vince loved whinging. I loved tearing mine open to see the orange tip of a $20 note poking out. Not that the envelope was often full. The only reason Vince hired me was so he could pay me peanuts. $8 an hour, and that's on weekends. "Mate, what do I have to do to make more money?" Vince asked, putting one arm over my shoulder and gently squeezing it. "I don't know, Vince. I often think that myself," I said, squirming a little. "Well, you're no good to me then," he said, removing his arm. "Money is money, and I need ideas. Now with that bloody Blockbuster store all my customers are beginning to leave. I gotta start branching out. There's no money in DVDs anymore." Vince gave his wart on the back of his neck an angry massage, complained that Blockbuster was only popular because their store smelt new and that most of the films made this year were rubbish and he wouldn't watch them for free, so why would customers pay $6 to hire them? Then he left. Vince sounds like he needs some happy pills, and what's with the little hug, said Tops. Yeah, he does that a bit, I said, it's kinda totally creepy. Anyway, what's up with the DVDs though? Would he risk keeping pirated DVDs in his own store? Hey, maybe he watches too much Sopranos, you know, thought some old-fashioned Cosa Nostra counterfeiting might make things spark up. I had to admit Vince was looking more and more desperate. The last time I worked with him, all he did was complain. But that was Vince. He whinged about his estranged wife's spending habits and child support of his kids, his 4WD that kept breaking down, about government taxes and GST and the film distributors who charged him $113 a DVD. I looked around the empty store. Vince probably did have a good excuse to resort to renting and selling illegal DVDs. Tops walked behind the counter and into the office. I'm going to take a look. See what sort of operation Vince has. What about Crass? He'll be back soon. But Tops had already gone out the back and down the stairs. Oh, man. I'd admit he was one of the smartest kid I knew, but sometimes he just had no idea. I could feel myself immediately beginning to sweat. I was about to yell out to Tops to get his butt back to the counter when the store door opened. It was Vince again. Tops. I tried to hiss as I backed away from the counter, trying not to look panicky and suspicious. Instead my voice froze up in fright. I have to grab something, Vince said as he walked around the counter towards the back. What if he found Tops poking around the office or down the basement with a couple of Vince's pirated DVDs in his hands? I had to do something and fast. Vince. I said, a little too loudly. He jumped. What? I was thinking. The new Nicole Kidman movie. Vince raised his wormy eyebrows and looked at me. What about it? It's just that you've put it on the bottom row of the new releases. I heard it was really good. Don't you think we should move it up so customers will see it? Do what you want, said Vince. As long as they rent the stupid thing. He walked into the back room towards the stairs. I heard the first wooden stair creak. Then the second. He was going down the basement. Oh man, this was bad. This was really bad. I hadn't wanted Tops to go down there in the first place. And he was such a skinny little runt, with his gawky stare, his glasses, and slouchy walk and hair stuck up like a carrot. Vince would probably beat him up. Hey, Vince. He rushed back to the counter thinking something serious had happened. 14. I didn't have a clue what to say now. I just wanted to give Tops a warning. I fumbled around with ideas. Vince, I wanted to ask you about the air. I looked around the counter wildly until I saw the cash register. The emergency alarm underneath the register. Does it still work? Vince didn't say anything for a minute. Then he looked really annoyed. Yes, it still works. Why do you ask me these stupid questions, Ed? Well, you know, what if there was some sort of emergency? I reasoned. Is it connected to the police station or something? I've never been told. Why don't you press it and find out? Yeah. I sat on it 3 years ago and the police were in here in 5 minutes waving their revolvers around, so I'm guessing the thing is still okay. He threw his hands in the air again, turned around and walked straight into Jim Carrey. Vince staggered backwards and Tops put the cutout on the ground. It was life-size and taller than his slight frame. I found Jim, said Tops. He was hanging around beneath the stairs. A customer asked for it? Gimme a break here, said Vince. What are you doing the hell in my office? I'm Peter Topolsky, I come here all the time. I've rented every one of your South Park discs and most of your manga titles. I just wish you'd get more in. Vince looked at me and narrowed his eyes. I could see his nose hairs sprouting defiantly as he flared his nostrils. A most unpleasant face. What's going on here? The office is for employees only. Not your boyfriends. Sorry, Vince. He was helping me out. Maybe I should hire him instead then, yeah. Vince stalked out the back and down the stairs. Tops looked at me and grinned like a moggy cat. He called me your boyfriend. He didn't say it in a nice way. He said it in a really sarcastic way. Are you sure? He seems like a serious sort of guy who wouldn't throw around words like that. 15. You wish. I grabbed the cutout of Jim and made a big deal of putting it safely behind the counter. Tops was my mate, a good mate. Just like Sky. We'd been best friends for 2 years, but we weren't a couple, and, as far as I was concerned, we never would be. I just didn't have any feelings for him beyond friendship. Why couldn't it have stayed that way? I guess deep down I knew he liked me, even though he pretended to only joke about it. It got a reaction from me because I didn't find it funny. I just hoped it was his hormones and he'd grow out of it. At school I had to put up with constant questions and teasing and laughs about me and Tops. Girls like Courtney Jarrett, who thought because she had a boyfriend we all needed one. So she went out with Year 9's resident hero because he made it to the all-schools long jump championship and came second. Big deal, he could jump a couple of meters, so what? And so what if they'd been going out for a year and a half and he'd given her an $40 gold necklace from Bevilles? Did that give Courtney the right to set up every other girl in our class? No, I liked things the way they were. Being able to watch anime or Jack Black movies without Tops trying to slip his arm around me, or getting all mushy when we were alone walking through the park. We could just have a good laugh and goss. That's what I wanted in a friend at the moment. All that romantic stuff was sort of gross, if you thought about it. I'd never tongue wrestled a guy, and I wasn't about to start. French kissing? Yuck. It's okay for people like Jessica Alba. They got paid millions to do it. Try and make some money for me, yeah, said Vince as he left, a bunch of paperwork stuck under his arm. And make sure your boyfriend pays for his movies. When Vince was gone I said, you were lucky to get out of that, dopey, but hey, did you get down to the basement? Yeah, but I only got a real quick look. The covers are good quality, that's for sure. Digitally printed. You can tell they're fake, but people would pay $7, maybe $8 for them, no problem. 16. But Tops didn't get time to even move. Crass walked in as we were arguing. He didn't look happy. He dumped his gym bag in the back room and came out brushing his peroxide blonde hair in that spiky echidna look he loved. Any action? He asked. Vince came in to drop the pay packets off. They're in the top drawer. What? Oh man, he hates me leaving you here alone. He said that too. Crass swore for at least half a minute. Something was bugging him. A few customers came in so Tops waved goodbye. I told him I'd speak to him later. That your boyfriend, said Crass as he scanned videos in for a customer. No. He's just a mate. Right, he said, drawing out the word sarcastically. He really is just a mate. You two seem to hang out a bit though. Yeah, as mates. Right. I gave up trying to justify myself. Then the last person I wanted to see walked, or rather, stalked into the store. Robert Kepler. 17. He Video Saloon store wasn't very popular. It's big, old, and crusty. Movie posters peeled off the wall and paint flaked off the white ceiling. Everyone in town called it the Video Loon because the S and A were missing from Saloon on the sign outside. I thought Vince should change the name completely. I mean, we don't even rent videos anymore. Should it be called the DVD Saloon or the Movie Saloon or something? It was too big as well, almost 4 times the size of the other shops on Main Street. It looked bare and cold when there were no customers, and dark and dreary in winter. The counter was right at the back of the store and customers were always complaining because they had to walk all the way down the store to make a return, unlike other rental stores, where the counter is always at the front door. Still, at least I had a job. There weren't many jobs in Rosedale. Not for Year 10 secondary school girls, unless you put your name down on the Kohl's waiting list or didn't mind putting up with greasy hands and the smell of fried fat at the chicken shack. I worked with Crass on weekends and an evening or two during the week. Crass worked at the video saloon full-time where he spent most of his day watching the store TV. My dad would have called him a no-good slacker before my dad actually became a no-good slacker himself. That's why I got this job. Anyway, one thing for sure, when I'm 19 I won't be working in a video store like him. I'll be out of this town. Live in Rosedale all my life? That's not for me. Who'd want to live in a town in the far reaches of the galaxy? It's so far away from anything. Not everyone thinks like I do though. My friend Sky lives in the Bracken Lake estate just outside of Rosedale and she loves the place. Stacey Fallon, you're wrong, Rosedale is so cool, she said to me during my last rant about the town as we walked around the lake that her estate is named after. It has tennis courts, bike paths and it even has a skating rink. 18. A skating rink? Whoopee. Awesome. Let's stay here forever. Anyway, compared to a hole like Bracken Lake, Rosedale would seem like some bustling metropolis. The best thing about getting out of Rosedale? I wouldn't have to put up with Robert's total weirdness. Robert looked tired, like he had just got out of bed. To my relief he ignored me and went straight to Crass. He gave Crass a DVD disc. Crass walked to the counter and casually dropped it in front of me. It was the Nightfalls disc. Crass had obviously rung Robert and asked him to return it. Robert followed Crass to the counter. He looked embarrassed and kept his eyes on the ground. It's illegal to burn DVDs, mate, Crass said to him with the same soft as barbed wire tone as my principal, Huffy Kilpatrick, named because of her habit of huffing at you before the start of any conversation, used during school assemblies. He handed back the blank silver disc Robert had accidentally returned to us, which I thought was overly generous. It was a copy after all. I thought he should have thrown it away. Crass held it away from Robert's grasp for a few seconds, as if leaving the disc where we could all see it magnified the crime. Yeah, I know, said Robert, his shoulders hunched and hands in his coat pockets. It was just for my own collection, you know, just so I could watch it again. Pretty stupid to give back the copy then. Or were you trying to rip us off by keeping the original? No. It was a mix-up. I'm sorry man, yeah, it was stupid. Crass turned to me with a smile. So Stacey, think we should slap a ban on him for this or what? For copying one DVD? When there were hundreds right under our feet in the basement. I told Crass that it wasn't a big deal. Robert paid to rent the DVD, that was the most important thing. Paid, laughed Crass. He looked at Robert with a sneer. I've always wondered, Robbo, where do you get all the money for your DVDs? You're unemployed, right? 19. Robert nodded his head sullenly. So then, a DVD is $6 a night and half price during the week. You watch a couple of hundred a year. That's a lot of dosh. You must be raking it in. Robert didn't answer. Go on, get out of here, said Crass. And if you want to copy DVDs, burn them from Blockbuster. Not from us. Robert gave Crass a sharp look, then hurried out of the store with his bouncing, gaping walk. I don't know if I'd have said that, Crass, I said when he'd gone. He'll never come back here again and he's our best customer. Doesn't mean anything to him. He's a geek, said Crass, dismissing Robert with a wave. He's used to people talking crap to him. Anyway, he'll be back tomorrow. He likes the staff. Crass gave me one of his thin-lipped smiles and walked back to the console games shelf. He could be so obnoxious sometimes. It made me want to thump him. I snatched the Night Falls DVD and squeezed the scanner trigger. The movie was added to the returned rentals list. If a customer returns a DVD late, a warning flashes onto the screen. You could also press the F7 key and take a look at the customer's profile, address, fines, rental history, how much money a customer had spent. Usually I took little notice of customer profiles. I saw that Robert's fines were 0. He usually came in every Saturday afternoon I worked, and as far as I knew he'd never handed in his rentals late. I wondered just how much money he had actually spent on rentals. It must have been hundreds and hundreds of dollars. If Robert was unemployed, that'd mean he spent most of his money in the store. Was it possible? I suppose if you don't have a job, watching movies is one way to pass the time. Then why didn't he just download them from the internet for free? Feeling slightly self-conscious and sneaky, I pressed the F7 key and then selected Rental History. At the top of the screen was a text box which read, Total rental. Spend for year, $34. $34 in 10 months? That couldn't be right. That'd be only 8 or 9 rentals, even if he did get them at half price. I downloaded his rental history. Holding down the cursor, I ran through the list of rentals. It was long. I knew it would be 277 films in the past year, exactly the same number as Crass had told me. He has a good memory. I scanned through the names: Wolf Creek, Saw 4, Land of the Lost, The Notebook, Semi-Pro, American Gangster, Wrong Turn, Blade Runner, The Hills Have Eyes. They weren't all horrors, that's for sure. And what was with The Notebook? That was like a mega weepa film from years back. That was a really weird choice for Robert. Next to each film on the rental history was the charge for each rental. Nearly every one of them was listed with the same charge, credit $0. A credit meant we'd rented it out for free. Robert hadn't paid for hardly any of his movies. Fair enough, he may have used the odd Shopee Docket voucher or his privilege card to get free rentals, but surely he had spent more than $34. Next to the charge was a code for the staff member who completed the transaction. You had to log on each time you used the computer. That way, if you didn't collect fines or if you charged the wrong amount or the end-of-day balance didn't add up, Vince would have known who stuffed up. Next to nearly every one of Robert's recent rentals was Crass login name, COL. I kept scrolling until I saw STA. My login name was only next to a handful of titles. I always made him pay. I looked at some of the titles under my login name. The last one was a gory slasher flick. I remember renting it out to him a month ago, because Crass had gone to lunch and Robert had gone on and on about the director of the film being the best new director out there. The film had been paid for at half price, as Robert had a Saloon privilege card, a scheme Vince had tried a couple of years before, but it had never caught on with customers, that gave you half price on new releases during the week. Soon enough you could get half price overnighters any weekday regardless. But Robert still liked to use his card. It was weird that Robert rented so many videos but hardly any from me. Always from Crass. Yet I remember him constantly returning DVDs to me, sometimes up to 3 or 4 on a weekend. I saw him every weekend, yet I'd only ever rented 4 or 5 titles to him. 21. I scrolled back to the top of the list to look at the transactions from earlier in the year. Again, Crass completed nearly all the transactions until around March. Then I saw another regular login name, Cat, beside a number of titles. The dates for Cat's transaction ended in June. I started in mid-July when I answered an ad in the local paper, along with nearly every other teenager in town. Again, nearly every rental charge of Cat's read, credit $0. Cat? Who was Cat? I thought back to the previous assistants. I never took much notice of them when I was a customer, which was rare anyway. Tops or Sky seemed to do all the renting, as I couldn't afford a movie every week. I remember a guy who always wore a red baseball cap. I didn't know his name. And an older girl from school. A pretty blonde. Was she Kat? And if so, what was her name? Kate. Katrina. I'd ask Tops. He'd been a regular at the video saloon for years. I was so absorbed I failed to notice a customer standing at the counter. I looked up to see him politely waiting. He had put his hands on the counter and was staring at a movie playing on the store TV, an old kid superhero animation film, The Incredibles, that I still found cool. That was the one really good thing about working at the video saloon. You could watch any movie you wanted. At other DVD stores you were supposed to run a preview tape of all the latest releases. So it was like watching an 8-hour clip of the same movies, over and over again. The man had on the crispest, best ironed shirt I've ever seen. I noticed the sharply ironed folds, like the ridge of an inclined hill, on his sleeves. He was old, maybe 50, with a pepper and salt mustache splashed with silver and streaks through his thin hair. He looked tired, his eyelids were slightly droopy and when he smiled it looked like it took a lot of energy out of him. Crass was at the other end of the store pretending to tidy up the comedy section. He looked like he was counting the number of videos, a strange habit of his I'd noticed not long ago. He didn't bother to make a move when he looked up and saw the customer at the counter. "Hi," I stammered. He had given me a fright. 22. "Hello there, I wondering if Mr. Gurieri is in." "No, he doesn't work on the weekends." The man reached into his pocket and took out a business card and showed me. The title on the card read, Detective Sergeant P.C. Rooks, Croydon CIU. I was talking to Mr. Gurieri a while back, the man, obviously Detective Rooks, said. "Can you ask him to contact me? My number is on the card." "Okay, I'll leave it for him. It's nothing important, get him to give me a call sometime next week. I'm visiting all the video stores in the area. I'm part of a regional response unit dealing with pirated goods." "Oh, really, like pirated discs?" I asked, my voice raising a higher octave than usual. I felt my face flush slightly. The detective looked at me for about a second longer than I felt comfortable with. "Yeah," he said. "We've caught a few people selling them at local markets. I'm asking around to see if any of the stores have had any problems. Any distributors offering to sell illegal discs or computer games to them, that sort of thing." "Okay, I'll get him to call you." "Good girl," said the detective, giving me a smile and walking out. Crass, listening, watched him go and then sauntered to the counter. What was that about? After copies of Police Academy, Pigs on Patrol, or what? No. He was asking about illegal discs. Copies. Caught people selling them at local markets. I had to watch what I said. I wasn't sure that Crass knew about the DVDs downstairs. "What did he ask you?" "Wanted to know if Vince had been sold illegal copies." "Don't think so. Have you noticed any?" 23. Me. Yeah, Crass, as a matter of fact I had noticed a few. Such as the huge pile sitting in the basement. Perhaps I should have told the detective about them. I could have got myself a big reward. Would I have dared to? If I did, Vince would be in big trouble. "No," I said. "I don't think I could tell the difference between an original and a copy anyway." Crass snorted. "I don't like cops," he said. "My older brother was always getting in friggin' trouble with them. They had it in for him big time. Got him driving an unregistered GT Ford doing 150 down Main Street. Also turned out to have some contraband in the back seat, a decent bag of dope that wasn't his. Got done big time. So let Vince deal with him. It doesn't worry me." As long as they leave me alone. That was when Crass saw the computer screen. I followed his gaze to Robert's rental profile. I had forgotten to log out of it when Detective Rooks had turned up. "What are you looking at that for?" Crass asked. "It's just Robert's rental history. Remember you said I should check it out? Well, I thought I would see how many horror movies he had rented." "You're right, it is scary." I left it at that. I knew when you tell a lie you shouldn't go into a long explanation. Leave it short. Otherwise it gives you away. I got that from Law and Order. There's always someone lying on that TV show. You can tell when they're telling the truth or are all shifty and flat out lying. Crass thought about what I'd said for a moment. Perhaps I should have told that cop about Robert pirating our movies. "You'd really do that?" "Nah. Just joking. After all, he's our best customer." 24. D been cooking for Dad for a couple of years. It was either that or live on a constant diet of fish and chips and barbecue chops with over-steamed veggies. Dad was never a good cook and it gives me something to do at night instead of watching TV. My favorite is lasagna. It took me at least 5 attempts to get it right though. The first few times I kept tearing the pasta layers apart. The white sauce could have been used in art class for glue and the pasta sauce was bitter. So I did some surfing and came up with a surefire hit. First, use instant lasagna sheets. Second, make the bolognese sauce yourself with tomato soup, crushed canned tomatoes and a couple of spoons of brown sugar to make it sweet. I also use celery, mushrooms and a few slices of bacon strips. Beautiful. The white sauce still gets me, but as long as you keep stirring it, no problems. The best thing about lasagna is freezing it. I can get 3, sometimes 4 meals out of one tray. There's no way I'm cooking every night, and lasagna actually tastes better with age. It can be too sloppy when freshly made. When I got home from work I threw 2 pieces in the microwave and then cooked up my second specialty, roasted vegetables. It's something I worked on at school and have perfected over the past year. The secret to good roast potatoes and pumpkin is to smother it all in heaps of olive oil and sprinkle on seasoning and garlic powder. Dad doesn't like buying olive oil because it's too expensive, but since I do the shopping with him I always smuggle it into the trolley. It's way better than sunflower oil. The roasted vegetables sizzled in the oven as I set the table. Dad was watching a reality cooking show in the living room. This was bad news, as Dad hates reality TV. When he watches crap it usually means he's on a downer. Usually I'd just plunk his plate on a tray and we'd both eat in front of the TV, but my lasagna and roasted veggies deserved better than that, especially as I actually worked all day as well. I think I was beginning to realize what a lot of married women's lives were like. Work hard, come. 25. Home and have your partner sitting in a recliner itching his bum with you in the kitchen. Sounds kind of sucky if you ask me. I don't think we've had new utensils or a tablecloth since Mum died, but I tried my best anyway. I used the 2 plate coasters with the Matisse paintings, 2 clean glasses and even put out some paper napkins. Table's looking good. Dad stood leaning on corner wall watching me finishing the table. Yeah, I said. You know that lasagna and roasted vegetables deserve the full treatment. May as well put some effort in. Dad rubbed his whiskered cheeks. Perhaps I could go whip down the shop and buy a Danish for dessert, he said. Nah, we've got ice cream, and I can open a can of fruit salad, I said. Dad looked relieved he didn't have to go out, and I knew he didn't want to spend any money on dessert. The ice cream and fruit salad were both cheap home brand and they were for special occasions. The only time we'd get away with a Danish would be if Queen Mary of Denmark popped around for a chat. I made sure the lasagna and vegetables were steaming hot before I served them, nothing worse than a lasagna with a cold center, and we both sat down to eat. I did most of the talking, as usual. Dad just smiled and listened. Vince is really angry because the games are coming back scratched, I said, giving Dad the highlights of the day. He just bought another copy of Assassin 2 and now we get it back today, and I go to return it, and there's an awesome scratch right across the disc. He's going to go, like, off his head when he finds out tomorrow. They cost $100 each. Crazy, Dad said, smiling. He usually perked up a bit after my lasagna. I went quiet for a bit, thinking about what else happened. There was no way I was going to bring up the pirated discs until I spoke to Tops. I thought I'd just leave that one lie for a while. It was when I went quiet I noticed how big the kitchen table was. I used to sit against the wall, Dad next to me and Mum across from me nearest to the kitchen. It 26. Took a couple of years for me to change seats and sit where Mum always did. But the table still looked too large even with half of it full of bills and letters and hardware tools. I suddenly decided I preferred to eat in front of the TV. It wasn't as if Dad had a huge deal to say anyway. It's amazing how customers treat the games and DVDs, I said. They must play frisbee with them or something. Dad laughed. You wouldn't believe some of the items they return at the hardware barn either, he said, scooping up a fork full of lasagna and roast carrots. The other day, or was it the other week, well, a lady brings in a gardening fork and asks to return it. Too heavy for her, apparently. Only problem is it's caked with dirt. She's used the fork in the garden, probably planted what she needed to, then when she's finished with it she's decided she wants a refund. Did you tell her to fork off? I laughed. Dad pointed the fork at me. No, but that's what we should have done. Good one, Stacey. The laughter sort of broke the unspoken feeling of sadness that sometimes descends on us at dinners. It still happens. It's good to see Dad laugh. Oh, I need a beer, he said, still smiling and getting up from the table. Want anything? No, I said, wishing he could leave the beer alone for one night. But you can't have beer with lasagna, it ruins the taste. Nothing can ruin the taste of a cold beer, Dad said, opening the fridge. I meant the taste of lasagna, I said. Later I piled the dishes into the sink while Dad sat down with his beer and his ice cream and fruit salad. This'd be the best dinner we'd have for a few weeks, that's for sure, because I wasn't going to put in an effort like this every night. I started to fill the sink, then turned the tap off. Let Dad do it, I thought. He wasn't going anywhere for the next few days. It'd give him something to do. Why should I do all the work? But then I saw the lasagna dish. White sauce and burnt pasta had dried along the rim of the dish and bologna stained the base. It looked so dirty and Dad wouldn't. 27. Clean it properly either. He'd probably leave it in the sink until the end of the week. I hated having the dishes pile up. So I ended up washing them myself. I didn't even use the dishwasher, a horrible old thing that was loud and wasted too much water. Sometimes I feel like I'm nothing but a 15-year-old housewife. 28. Waited until I could hear Dad snoring in his recliner before I rang Tops. I didn't want Dad to listen in. Hey dude, I said when Tops answered. Even though there was 5 in his family, Tops always answered the phone at his house. I think it's because a cordless phone sits right next to his computer. Hey, he replied absent-mindedly. After hearing that far-away voice, I knew immediately that Tops was either playing World of Warcraft on his PC, updating his homepage or fiddling around with something technical such as remote control car motor that was always in need of repair. I love talking on the phone. It's much better than face-to-face. I just feel more comfortable and free to speak my mind. Sky is my best phone buddy. We can talk about everything and anything, seriously, for an hour without stopping for breath. It's one of the reasons I'm not allowed a decent mobile, though I'm planning on getting a Motorola this Christmas from Dad. At the moment I have to put up with a prepaid phone that is at least 5 years old and dies at random times throughout the day. My all-time phone record? Last summer when Sky had come back from the Gold Coast with an awesome story about almost drowning in the surf. It took 2.5 hours to tell it. Now Tops, he's different. He loves to talk, but on the phone he's really average. He's always distracted and never listens to what I'm saying. Ah, huh, yep, okay. He'd mumble as I waxed on about the store or an assignment or my dad's latest bad mood. Boys just don't get phones. This time, however, he listened. I explained about the visit by Detective Rooks and Crass being fairly unhappy about it. Then I told him that according to the store computer, Robert Kepler had rented almost 300 DVDs in the past year, most of them for free. 29. How does he get DVDs for free? Asked Tops after I had explained how so many of his DVD listings displayed credit $0 and how easy it was to credit customers for rentals. You think Crass rents them all to him? Crass doesn't exactly come across as a generous sort of guy. Dunno. Perhaps Crass feels sorry for him because he's unemployed. Although, I thought, his smart arse cracks this afternoon said otherwise. Then I remembered the previous login name I saw, Cat. I asked Tops who it could be. He knew immediately. Only the second best looking chick who ever worked at the Loon. Do you have a name, Tops, or are you going to start drooling down the phone? Of course. Who could forget her? Caitlin Allende. Caitlin Allende. I knew who he was talking about. Caitlin Allende of the swirling blonde hair and the blue eyes and the school uniform that was just a little too small. A very deliberate ploy, I felt, to show off her long, tanned legs. She was in year 12 and had played the lead role of Sandy in the school production of Grease. I thought her rendition of Hopelessly Devoted to You sucked, but Tops loved it and sang it at school the next day all through our game of indoor hockey. Being incredibly beautiful, popular, and 2 years older than me, I had never spoken to her. Tops wanted to change all that. We should talk to her, you know, he said. She suddenly left the video saloon several months back. I was heartbroken, of course. It's like losing your first true love. Give it a rest, Tops. You'll make me throw up. Why would we want to talk to her anyway? She could help us out. Give us some clues. Perhaps she knows something about the stash of DVDs in the basement? Hey, you could also apologize to her too. For what? Taking her job. You replaced her. Should it be a verbal or do you want me to write a formal sorry? Verbal will be fine. 30. I thought it was a dumb idea to speak to Caitlin, even though she had, like Crass, rented out DVDs to Robert for free. A coincidence. Still, I thought it was pointless and I definitely didn't want to tell her about the stash in case she told Crass or Vince. Come on, Stace, this is like one of those awesome Secret 7 books we read in primary school where the kids solve the crime, said Tops, all excited. We've got to take this further by talking to Caitlin. Before I could tell Tops how much of a stupid idea it was, Dad barked from the living room, Stacey, would you get off that phone? You've been on it for ages. You just want an excuse to talk to Caitlin, I said, trying to finish off the conversation. She isn't that great. Hey, I never said she was. After all, I said she was the second best looking chick at the video saloon. Stacey, my dad bellowed from the family room. I heard him shift on the recliner. I used it as an excuse to hang up on Tops. I didn't want to hear who he thought was number one. I went and apologized to Dad. I'd virtually sat on the phone this week. Better to say sort, it would save a Barry lecture later on. Still, if we had broadband I could use Skype for free. Stacey, he said, you know how tight money is at the moment. We're not exactly at the starving stage, Dad. You make us sound like we're like, totally poor. If we can afford beer, we can afford a few phone calls. Dad, shrunk back down into the couch. They've reduced back my hours at the store. So it'll be fairly tough going this month until they need me again full-time for Christmas. Dad worked at a hardware store out of town. One of those giant warehouses that blight the landscape. He used to be manager of the tradesperson's accounts but quit when Mum died. He couldn't handle the stress. Now he shelves nails and helps answer customer queries about outdoor acrylic paint. I don't think he enjoys it. 31. It's one reason I was so happy to get the job at the video saloon. I hated asking Dad for money, and this way I earned my own cash. If it wasn't for my job, I'd never get to the cinema, never get any new clothes, and I'd even struggle to buy my magazines each month. I'd even paid for a birthday present for Sky last month because I didn't want to ask Dad for any money. If I wanted anything, I had to pay for it. How we'd afford the textbooks for school next year when the workload started to really increase, I didn't know. I'd be jeopardizing what money I did earn by telling him about the DVDs, that's for sure. "Don't worry, Dad," I said, patting his hands. I drew them over my shoulder and hugged him. Something I don't do so much anymore. He hugged me back and I could feel his bony ribs. He'd lost weight this year. He was skinnier than me. It made me feel sort of sad. I felt his bristles rub against my cheek. He had bad skin. Wrinkled and blotched and tight with worry. His gray hair looked limp. His general appearance was not helped by a boring, daggy gray tracksuit that hung off him like a scarecrow. I think I got over Mum's death a whole lot quicker than he has. In fact, I don't think he's made any progress at all. I read somewhere that men fall into two categories: men who want to look after their women, and men who just want to be loved by them. Dad is definitely in the second category. He relied on Mum a lot. I guess Dad was always a bit of a dreamer, a romantic. She was the hard-headed, no-nonsense one who ran the house, paid the bills, made the tough decisions, and even bought his clothes. I guess I take after her. I get over things and just keep working. Boy, the ways things are going, it'll only be a few years until I'd be buying his Bonds undies for him. Mum was a primary school teacher. A good one. She was always busy, always running around organizing picnics and school dances and our camping holidays to Lake's Entrance. I don't think any of us could believe it when she got cancer. Except her. She told me before she died she always knew she had been living on borrowed time. It's why she hated wasting it, why she was always so busy. Something had happened years before. 32. A scare. Or more. I never did find out exactly what. It was the reason she couldn't have any more kids after me. Something to do with her ovarian tubes. Anyway, out came the library books, the therapies, the all-natural pills, and meetings with self-help groups. But it didn't do any good. She hung in there for a long time. The cancer was like a seesaw. Up, down, good, bad, temporary remission, hospital. Dad fell apart soon after, although everyone else thinks he's more or less held it together. But he hasn't. He doesn't play in his night tennis competition anymore. He can't face Lake's Entrance even though we used to spend almost a month down there every year for as long as I can remember. He dresses badly and he has to force himself to even smile. The only thing he still does is fish, but most of the time he comes back empty-handed. I think he just sits by the Yarra River, his favorite fishing spot, and stews. God, it's hard to see your dad down so badly. Although it has made me more independent. I don't know any other 15-year-olds who do the laundry, cook spaghetti bolognese dinners, and buy the groceries every week. I just want to get on with life. That's what Mum would have wanted. I try to tell him that, but there's a barrier between us. I just don't feel like talking about these sort of things. I can talk for hours about gossip, school, TV. Just not feelings. That's probably why I have a boy as my best friend. I feel freaky talking about feelings. I like action, as the saying goes, not words. Dad sighed. I have to get back on the treadmill, he said. Back to some decent work. I owe it to you. Yeah, when you're ready, Dad. You don't need to rush things. This wasn't true. I wanted him to get back to full-time work. I wanted him to be able to buy me a decent birthday present instead of a sanity record voucher I got this year. I'm in year 10, but I'm still getting primary school presents. It didn't even buy me a full-price CD. I want to come home without seeing him staring emptily at the car racing on the box, or staring out the window as he shovels a saucepan of baked beans around. Most of all, I want to be able to be a daughter, not a surrogate mother. The fact I'm an only child makes it worse. I've got nobody else to help me out. 33. Stacey, I have to get a move on. We're not saving anything. Your mother's money isn't going to last forever, he said. That's what saved us. Mum's life insurance. Her superannuation insurance wasn't much, but it still paid off the mortgage, so we now own our house. But the insurance, I think, let Dad off the hook. He preferred moping around and not dealing with stuff. 2 years after she died, he still only works a couple of days a week. The money has dwindled, and if this continues we'll really be stuck. I know he hurts. I know he even suffers a bit of depression from time to time. But what sort of life does that leave me with? A dead mother and a dad that's all worn out. Then what about looking around for another job? I said. There's some decent stores around that'd need full-time work. Stace, it's not that easy. I've tried, but... I let him trail off. It's always the same. Spell out the problem and then discuss why it can't be solved. The next day at school, Tops virtually dragged me towards the year 12 homeroom where Caitlin was most likely to be. He was that excited. I thought computer geeks weren't interested in girls, I said as we walked to the portable. It came out more cutting than I meant, both about him being a geek and being uninterested in girls, but I was feeling uncomfortable and silly about talking to Caitlin, and I felt angry at Tops because of it. What, exactly, were we going to ask anyway? Tops wasn't an easy boy to upset. He never had been. "Come on, Stacey, you've seen Revenge of the Nerds," he said. Remember that line, all jocks think about is sport. All nerds think about is sex. There's an honest truth about that quote. I pretended to be unimpressed and told him I'd never seen Revenge of the Nerds. It's hard to say if Tops is really a geek or not. He loves computers, he has an encyclopedic knowledge of movies, he can ace a test without studying, and he wears glasses that don't suit him. Also, he can't play sport to save himself, except for badminton, and prefers to listen to video game soundtracks and electronica created by MySpace weirdos than video hits. But he's confident and friendly with strangers, which 34 is decidedly ungeekish. And he's not a real geek because he wears Globe skate shoes and ever tough shirts his mum buys him. I think he's a unself-conscious half-geek / half-cool sort of guy, a bit like a werewolf that uncontrollably changes at every full moon. It's a fairly good personality mix. We've been best friends since year 7. We hooked up in the first week during a game of softball. We both sat on the fence at the end of the batting line trying to avoid playing. "Don't you think softball is, like, illogical?" he had said. "It doesn't make sense. You hit a ball, you run around a diamond, and you just end up back where you started. I'm thinking of making it more interesting by just running to first and doing a handstand on the base," I had said. "I'll give you a can of Sprite if you do. You're on." But I never got the chance. I got struck out and the ball was thrown to first base before I took a step. I wouldn't have done it anyway. It takes a lot for me to do something that makes me look ridiculous. From then on we clicked. We'd been through a lot together: the infamous shepherd's pie food poison outbreak at school camp, the school bus crash last year that broke Trevor Gilchrist's nose, Helen Dudley's birthday party where Tops ignored me after I'd replied true when asked the question, you'd rather kiss roadkill than Peter Topolsky, true or false, and as a result we didn't speak for the rest of the night. And of course, my mum's death. So he's been a good mate. We found Caitlin reading over school notes. Year 12 seemed to do nothing but exams and homework. One of her friends, Becky someone, I think, was with her. They both looked up at us in surprise. "Hi Caitlin," said Tops. "I was wondering if we could talk to you for a minute." "What about?" she asked hesitantly. Obviously she had no idea who we were. Tops looked at Becky and back to Caitlin. "It's private," he said. "It's about the video saloon." 35. Caitlin gave Becky an exasperated look. Becky turned up her nose at us and left, obviously annoyed. "What about the video saloon?" Caitlin asked, but before Tops could answer she looked at me. "Say, don't you work there? You took over my job." She didn't sound very happy about it. "Yeah, I thought it would be good if Stacey apologized," grinned Tops. "And while we're here, I was just wondering, did anything funny go on before you decided to leave?" "What do you mean funny?" "Like, anything that was perhaps not 100% normal." "Why do you want to know?" "Stacey just has this feeling about the place, you know, that things are a bit weird. Like that guy, Robert Kepler. We wanted to know a bit more about him, like, he freaks Stacey out a bit, and I was sort of wondering, is he dangerous or what?" "I only worked there Friday and Saturday evenings," Caitlin said. "I don't remember every customer." "Horror movie fanatic," said Tops. "Likes the freaky stuff. Looks like that old wrestler, The Undertaker, if The Undertaker had gone on a Subway diet." "Oh, yeah, him. Robert Kepler. I sort of remember. I dunno, I was only there 6 months. He seemed harmless. I wouldn't worry about him." "Nah, he's just a bit weird, that's all." "Why, has he been hassling you?" "No," I said, wanting to tie this pointless conversation up, "I just wanted to know." "Hey Caitlin, why did you leave anyway?" asked Tops as I took his arm and turned to leave. "My dad knows the manager of the new Blockbuster store. I'm going to be working there over summer." Which didn't answer the question because the school year wasn't over for a month and Caitlin left the store around 4 months ago. I surprised myself by speaking up again and asked, "How did you find Vince and Colin?" I wanted to know if she'd seen either of 36. Them getting up to mischief down in the basement with the pirated discs, but I didn't want to spell it out yet. I still didn't feel I could trust Caitlin enough. "Oh, I dunno, I wasn't there long, so." The morning bell interrupted us. Caitlin seemed relieved. She told us she had to go and quickly picked up her notes and rose from the bench. I saw Tops glance at her legs as she did. I gave him a nasty look and he shrugged his shoulders, as if to say, "She's wearing a really, really short skirt, what did you expect me to do?" "Thanks Caitlin for your help, we'll see you round," Tops called after her. She ignored him. He seemed reluctant to leave but I dragged him away. "Seems a bit strange," I said to Tops as we walked to our homeroom. "Caitlin wasn't telling us everything." "Like what?" "I dunno. But she seemed uncomfortable, like she didn't want to talk about it at all." "Perhaps she was dazzled by my wit and charm," said Tops. "No, I'd reckon it was more freaked out." "Why don't we just tell her about the pirated gear?" "Because we don't know all the facts yet." And that little discussion didn't help at all. We didn't even ask her about the free rental credits. Besides, I don't feel comfortable talking about it with her. Truthfully, I was almost ready to ignore the pirated discs anyway. If Tops hadn't been so pushy about talking to Caitlin, I would have never gone near her. Later that afternoon during lunch I left Sky. Tops had gone off with his mates to the IT room, for a toilet break. As I walked into the toilet block with its harsh antiseptic smell and faded graffiti half-heartedly rubbed off by the cleaner, I bumped right into Caitlin. She gave me a fright. "Oh, sorry," I said, a little shaken. She ignored me. Instead she looked around, as if she didn't want anyone to hear. She leaned over to me. I could smell sweet perfume and tangy shampoo on her skin. "Listen, I just want to add one more thing about that store," she said, almost whispering. 37. Now. I didn't want to say anything in front of your friend, but watch yourself. Just keep your head down. Before she could finish, her friend Becky called her from outside the toilet block. "Just watch yourself," Caitlin said hurriedly. She started to leave but stopped again, turned to me and said, "And don't ask me anything about that store again, because I don't want to talk about it." 38. Sat in the back room of the video saloon during my lunch break and stared dejectedly at my souvlaki. I took a piece of onion out and threw it in the bin. I don't even like onion in my souvlaki, but when Toby from the fish and chip shop asked if I wanted onion, I said sure. I wasn't even listening to him properly. I was thinking about other things. And now my breath would smell of garlic and onion the rest of the day. Gross. It'd been a week since Tops and I had spoken. I knew it was my fault, but Tops didn't understand anything. He thought we should have been gung-ho and gone straight to Detective Rooks and told him everything that we knew and had Vince busted. "So what are we going to do?" Tops grinned when I had told him later what Caitlin had said in the toilets. "Do we fry Vince today or tomorrow? I'll tell you after I think about it a little more." "Oh man," laughed Tops. "This is gonna be fun." Yeah, I thought, a real blast. I'd made up my mind what I was going to do later that night. I told Tops the next day. "What do you mean you're not going to do anything?" Tops had said in disbelief when I said we were just going to forget about it. "Caitlin tells you they're, like, maxed out dodgy. We haven't got any real evidence about what they're up to." "Oh, come off it, Stacey. Only a basement full of DVDs and a girl who thinks the place is straight out of an asylum." "Tops, stop exaggerating. She didn't say anything like that. Anyway, who cares about pirated DVDs anyway? Every kid in this school copies console games and downloads music all the time. Just last week Xavier gave Sky about 100 songs on CD. How about that then? I suppose I should dob Xavier and Sky into Huffy, should I?" 39. Tops flushed. He hated it when I was sarcastic. I reserved that tone for the moments when I was really angry or frustrated. Like now. I stopped and eyeballed him. "Tops, do you want to know the real reason I'm not going to do anything?" Tops shrugged and refused to look at me. I told him anyway. "I need that job over the summer holidays because Dad is broke." Last night I found him crying at the kitchen table. Crying. He had a bank statement in his hand. "We've got almost nothing left." That's what he said. "I don't know how it happened, but all of Mum's insurance is gone. Dad can hardly pay our bills, and what am I supposed to do? There's no other decent jobs in this town and I need to make some money. So what if Vince sells pirated DVDs? It's not as if it's dope, is it? It's not as if what Vince is doing is any different to any other guy with a DVD burner. So what? Big deal." Tops looked me with hurt in his eyes. "Because I think what Vince is doing is wrong, and if you know about it and let it happen and you keep working at the store knowing they're selling pirated gear, it means you're just almost as bad as he is." I hesitated for just a second, but all I could think of was seeing the jagged stream of tears and the red eyes of my father. I'd walked in after school expecting him to be at work on one of his rare days out of the house. Instead I heard him sniffing at the table. He looked, I thought as I threw my school bag on the sofa, pathetic. Beaten. The bill lay on the table crushed, as if Dad thought screwing it up would make it disappear. He was always vague about finances and I never took much notice before anyway. I knew we didn't have much, we never did when Mum was alive anyway, but I knew things were serious when Dad said we were only just scraping by. That we had an overdraft that was continually growing. That we owed the bank too much money. Dad wasn't just crying about the bill. I knew that. It wasn't if our house was getting repossessed. It happens every month or so. The crying, that is. It all catches up to him. The work, the depression, Mum. He goes on a downward spiral for a day or two. The first time it happened I wasn't sure what to do. We were at Bracken Lake a couple of months after Mum's funeral. Just watching the ducks and the little kids play on the swings and slides. We'd driven to the estate and were going for a walk together. 40. Around the lake, like we've done at least 100 times since. We'd gone a quarter of the way around when Dad stopped and looked out across the shallow, dank water. There was a warning sign about swimming in it. I used to love walking around here with your mother on a Saturday morning, he'd said quietly. It's so quiet, we even thought about moving to Bracken Lake Estate, we loved it so much. Sometimes they'd be mist over the lake. On a summer morning it'd be so bright you couldn't even look at the water without sunglasses. Laura used to love feeding the ducks. She loved those ducks, the ducks set him off. He stood on that path and heaved and blubbered. I hugged him and he said, "What am I going to do, Stacey? What am I going to do?" As if I had an answer to that. I wasn't even 13. How could I even comfort him? Every child thinks their father is so strong. Emotionally, I mean. Nothing could ever hurt my dad is what every kid says. A father isn't supposed to cry, to be vulnerable. I learned that wasn't true. I knew he wasn't as strong as I'd once believed. That's why I didn't really care if copying DVDs was wrong or not. There was more important things in life. You're only saying that 'cause that's what your dad says, I said to Tops. You don't really believe it? I knew his dad was totally against copying of any sort, even CDs. Tops wasn't allowed to use pirated computer games and, once, when his dad found a pirated games disc he had snapped it in half. Tops had told me this with more pride than anger. I'd been at his house once for lunch last year and Tops was eagerly telling his dad how he was going to download the special edition of a sci-fi film, and it hadn't even hit the cinemas yet. I hope you're not going to watch it, Alexander, his dad, had said. Sure, why not? Because it's illegal, that's why. You've stolen it? Come on, Dad, Tops had laughed. Sci-fi producers are like multi-billionaires. They're not going to care. I'll probably go and see it at the cinema anyway. I just want to catch it early. 41. Alexander had put his soup spoon down. He always gave this look where you knew it was time for a lecture. His eyebrows pointed towards his nose and his lips became thin and he didn't move for a few moments. Not a muscle. He just stared at Tops. He did his lecturing often enough, according to Tops. He thought doing the right thing was so important he'd even made Tops read books on ethics. In his deep, serious Polish accent of his, Alexander had said, "Pirating is stealing, no matter who you're copying from. You think filmmakers spend millions and millions of dollars making a film just so people can download it for nothing? You enjoy it, you pay for it. Otherwise there'll be no more Star Wars or Lord of the Rings anymore. It's become too much. It's an epidemic. Music shops have disappeared because nobody buys CDs anymore. What next? Cinemas. Well, there'll be no copying in my house, Peter, that's for sure." "Right. So I'll take that as a no, we can't download it," Tops had said, embarrassed that I was witnessing his dad's morale outrage. But his dad hadn't finished. "Just think," he continued, "if you'd spent years writing and planning and producing a movie only to have people copy it just so they could see it a couple of days early. Wouldn't you rather they pay you for 2 hours of decent entertainment? It's not a free world, Tops. It doesn't exist just for your amusement. Morality and ethics start with the very basics: do not steal. Okay Dad, geez, take a chill pill, Tops said. I get the message. I'd said nothing. Dad and I didn't really have these sort of heavy conversations with words like ethics in them. Besides, I had recently copied at least 8 CDs from Sky and bought a bunch of dodgy DVDs from the Rosedale Market to go with our new DVD player. Dad hadn't said anything about it when I told him triumphantly that each disc was only $5 each. In fact, he'd sat up and watched a Will Ferrell comedy that night with me and laughed all the way through. Most of my music and movie collection was copied. In response to my jibe, Tops said, "Actually Stacey, I do believe what my dad says. He's right, that's why." 42. Oh, it's okay for you to go on about it Tops, your dad is a big shot software engineer, I said. So your parents are rich. Need some money for a new pair of jeans? Ask Dad. Need a new pair of globes? Just ask Dad. Sure Peter, here's $100, have fun out shopping. Then, when it's Christmas, here, have a new mountain bike and then it's off on holidays at your beach house. Well, I can't do that. I have to work. So go off and tell the cops. Pretty dramatic, but it worked. I felt better too, even though I was basically using Tops as a punching bag for my frustrations. Of course, Tops didn't do anything about the video saloon. He also didn't speak to me for the rest of the week. Not that we didn't sit together or totally ignore each other, just that he was hurt, I was angry and we both went into a bit of sulk. Me, because I was just basically angry, and Tops because I'd gone and burst his little adventure balloon. I felt sorry for Sky the most. She's a good friend too. Someone who's intensely loyal. She may be a scatterbrain and a loudmouth sometimes, but she's never let me down. Now she had to sit awkwardly between us in class or at lunch. She'd ask us what was wrong, but neither of us would say. It was a bad week. A couple of times I'd reached for the phone at home or tried to crack a joke at school, but nothing happened. I knew I'd have to apologize eventually. Which I hate doing. I was hoping the argument would just fade away and we'd be back being friends again. Anyway, I thought I was right with what I had said. If you've got money, you can afford to decide what's right and wrong. You can be picky. I angrily threw away 2 pieces of onion from the souvlaki as I thought about our conversation. Who was Tops to make me feel guilty? I have a father who works part-time and who still can't cope with losing his wife, and I'm supposed to just throw away my job? And so what about a bit of pirating? As if every kid in school isn't into it, from Rebecca Kite and her 2,500 songs on her iPod, all downloaded from the internet. She had once boasted the last time she'd actually paid for music was a Wiggles cassette 10 years ago, to that Sri Lankan guy from year 11 who gave out lists of PS3 and Xbox 360. 43. Console games he'd sell you for $8 a game or 2 for 10. All copies. So, what was a few DVDs in the basement of a down-and-out video store? I didn't care. I really didn't. When Vince came in that afternoon and gave me my pay packet and I ripped it open and saw the crisp $10 and $20 notes, it was settled. As far as I was concerned, those illegal DVDs never existed. This strategy lasted exactly a week. Tops and I had slowly begun to mellow out at school. We were still angry at each other, but I did lend him my copy of our literature class novel, Sonia Hartnett's Sleeping Dogs, when he had left his at home, and he did give me his spare packet of burger rings for morning break. Still, it was an awful week. I felt a guilty knot in my stomach every time I saw Tops. This was the longest running feud I had ever had with a friend. On Saturday afternoon I joined Crass in the video saloon for an afternoon and evening shift. I rarely had to work the mornings. The afternoon was busy though. Summer was only a few weeks away, but the weather had turned cold and dreary. This always improved business. And we had a new deal, 5 weeklies for $5. It got us pretty busy. Crass and I got to talking about being broke. He understood where I was coming from. His dad had nicked off to work in the mines in Western Australia and his mum worked in a crummy bakery. They never had any money. Your skin too? He asked. Pretty much. I want to save money to buy a car in a few years' time. No way could my dad buy me one. Know how you feel? Vince pays us chicken feed. That's why I try to earn a little on the side. I suddenly became uneasy. Very uneasy. What do you mean? I asked. Crass scratched his peroxide hair. I run a little business. It makes a bit of money. I could always do with some extra help, too. I had a bad feeling where this was leading. What sort of help? 44. Packing and posting DVDs, maybe some console games or CDs, for my own customers. You could help me get the labels ready, pack some boxes, all easy stuff. You can even do it from home. A sinking feeling, like you get in a real fast roller coaster, hit me hard. So Crass was in with Vince too? Nah, it sounds a bit fiddly and stuff. I don't reckon I'd be good at it, I said. Hey, it's no big deal, said Crass. I just sell a few DVDs. If you want to help, that'd be cool, but it's up to you. I'll think about it. Yeah, I dunno, I stammered. Oh man, I couldn't believe it. I find the DVD stash and then a couple of weeks later he asks me to help sell them. This was crazy. What were the chances? Why would he ask me to help him out, anyway? What was the point? A customer came in and asked Crass to recommend some good comedies for her daughter's slumber party. Crass walked with her to the comedy section, giving me some valuable time to think. What did the Caitlin's warning mean? I didn't want to say anything in front of Fio, your friend, but watch yourself. Just keep your head down. It sounded sinister to the max. Crass rented out an average comedy, it was The Princess Diaries 2, which is way unfunny compared to the book, and turned back to me. Thought about my little business proposition then. It sounds okay, but, you know, I'm not sure, I said. Hey, it's no big deal. It's not as if I'm getting you to sell stolen goods or anything, just help me out with a couple of DVDs. Besides, I thought you said you needed the money. Just trying to help you out, you know. Crass rubbed his hands up and down his t-shirt. A customer returned a bunch of videos. Crass took them and held the first cover up and studied the blurb. It was from the classics section, Honor Among Thieves? Very appropriate. Crass put the video down. Listen, do you want to make some extra money or not? He asked. 45. I thought about Dad and the bills. Then I thought about Caitlin's warning. Not for the first time in the past few weeks, I said, let me think about it. 46. Had to forget about my stupid pride. I think I realized that if I didn't do something about Tops and we'd never become friends again. It's not as if he didn't have other friends. He could forget all about me if he wanted. Sure, he's one of my best friends, but it's not as if we hung out together every weekend and sat together every class. His mates, Will Phillips and Ray Knipe, were basically computer geeks like him. They hung out a lot together, but for some reason he preferred my company. You know why? Courtney Jarrett would have said with a wink. I'm not so sure. If he was friends with me just because he thought that one day we'd get together, he'd have given up long ago. I'd made it clear I didn't like him in that sort of way. But I really did care for him, so I was ready to do the apologetic stuff to get him back on side. I knew how, too. Compliments. It works every time, especially when you compliment a guy. They're suckers for it. I don't mean I was being manipulative, I just needed a springboard to reach the next level, an apology. So during computer studies I waited until he was finished updating his homepage, walked over behind him, leaned over and read the content of the screen. I told him, as I placed my hand on his shoulder, how cool it was. He smiled and looked at my hand, which I left on his shoulder just a second longer than I normally would as I kept reading the screen. At lunchtime he caught up with me at the canteen and bought me a raspberry licorice strap. "A peace offering," he said as he handed me the licorice. "Thanks Tops, but it should be me apologizing to you." Tops snatched the licorice from my hands and bit off the end. "Apology accepted then," he laughed, chewing madly. It was good to be friends again. It's the worst, having to ignore each other. You want things to go back to the way they were, but you don't want to have to be the first to. 47. Say you're sorry. If we ever have arguments, it's Tops who usually breaks the ice. I wish I could, but I can't. I don't know why. We didn't talk about the video Saloon. I think Tops didn't want to risk another argument and neither did I. I'd made up my mind, anyway. I was going to say no to Crass and start looking around for another job. I'd try Kohl's or even the Chicken Shack. There wasn't a whole lot of options for me, but I guessed I'd get something. The following weekend summer made a sudden appearance in the form of a hot, aqua blue Sunday afternoon. My fingers made sweaty prints on the DVD covers and I had to keep wiping the covers clean. Melbourne weather is like that. Hot days just creep up on you and knock you around, burn your shoulders and make you sweat. Then the next day it could be all windy, miserable, and cold. Weird. I was in the weekly release section checking out a Ben Affleck film, Surviving Christmas. It was one of the flicks that totally skip the cinema and sits forlornly by themselves in the weekly section. It seemed to refuse to rent itself out. Ben Affleck used to be my favorite actor. In 2 years he made 3 brilliant films, Good Will Hunting, Chasing Amy and Shakespeare in Love. That film made me go funny in the stomach. Really. It was so romantic in a real sort of way. I still watch it every 3 or 4 months. It's my comfort film. Then what happens? Giggly, Daredevil, Pearl Harbor. That's what. I've seen them all. They suck. Sure, I'd love to be in a romantic but doomed love triangle with Ben, but only in a decent movie. Anyway, that was a long time ago and I'd almost forgotten about Ben now. Since working at the store I've watched a lot more videos and read about a lot of movie stars. I always found it funny that actors star in some of the best movies ever and then suddenly string together complete duds for 5 years straight. It's like they hit a wall and that's the end of their career. Or is it just bad luck? Is picking a movie basically random, like the Saturday Night Lottery? Did Ben just get lucky when he made all those great movies? I continued dusting the shelves when a girl in a tight black t-shirt, hipster jeans, and tousled brown hair came up and asked for Crass. She could have been out of Neighbors. 48. She'd be one of the bitchy girls who tries to move in on taken guys. Before I could answer, Crass called out, "Hey yeah Tony," and walked over to us. He obviously knew her. She put her hand on his arm affectionately. I counted at least 5 cheap gold rings on her fingers. Classy. I thought I remembered seeing her around town a few times, but I'd never seen her at school before. I guessed she was around 18, so she may have left. "Crass, how ya doing?" Tony said. She was all smiles. I tried to make myself scarce and kept on dusting. "Tony, looking good," Crass said. "Aw, you're sweet," Tony purred. "Now, what about my summer job? Have you asked your boss yet?" Crass jerked his head over towards me. "Sorry, man. We don't need anybody at the moment. Stacey is working the weekends for us. I can put in a good word for you though." Tony gave me a dirty look, as if I had taken her job. They spoke a little more before Tony said, "Well, I'll catch ya mate," and wiggled her way out of the store. Her bum was swinging so much it could take kids on a playground ride. Is she looking for a job? I said with obvious loathing. Yeah. Man, is she one hot chick, or what? I took that to be rhetorical question and didn't answer. Perhaps I should let her in on my little business venture. Crass said. She needs the money. Unless, of course, you've changed your mind. I was hoping he'd forgotten about it. Crass, I still dunno. Why do you need me to do it anyway? Stace, all I'm asking you to do is hand a few customers some packages every now and then. It's simple. Easy money, man. See, I can't be here all the time and I just need someone to hand over the goods and take the cash. And all I have to do is hand over the packages. Yeah, that's all. Does Vince know about it? 49. Yeah, he knows, but, well, he's cool about it, only I don't like promoting the fact I'm selling them on his time. I still don't know. Crass took a DVD cover from the shelf and flicked it into the air. It's up to you, he said, catching it in one hand, but I know plenty of others who'd be happy to earn a few extra bucks working here. He walked back to the counter with the DVD in his hand, stuck it in the player and began to watch it. I kept up with the dusting. Crass didn't seem to be too cut with me. But was that a threat? I'd already gone and put my name down in Kohl's, but the assistant manager, a woman named Raz with hips the size of a ute, told me every teenage kid in town was on the waiting list. They all wanted jobs for the summer holidays. The Chicken Shack didn't even take my details. They said they advertise in the front window when they need someone. I'd just lose this, the bristly manager had said, giving back my resume. That left the bakery and a few smaller stores. I guessed I'd have to go to Ringwood and the big shopping center there, but it'd mean a bus and then train journey. Not something I was looking forward to. I know plenty of others who'd be happy to earn a few extra bucks here. I kept on dusting and began to think it was actually worth risking a few over-the-counter sales of pirated discs just to keep my job. Who'd ever know? I could blame Crass if I was caught. I could do with the extra money too. I tried to put the idea out of my head, but later that night I started to ponder over it as I half-heatedly finished some algebra problems at the kitchen table. The kitchen was getting feral. Ridges of dirt trailed around the edge of the cupboards, the fridge and oven were streaked black with grease, and the frying pan hadn't been washed in 3 days. Congealed fat lay as smooth as an ice rink on its surface. Mum would never have let us get away with this. She wasn't the world's greatest cleaner, but the house never looked grotty. It was always neat. I felt the place was starting to slowly fall apart. Dad was fairly hopeless tidying up, and I only glossed over the real dirty bits. I'd vacuum, but I didn't dust. The white windowsills were now camouflaged with grime and 50. The shower had bits of my mousy hair and Dad's beard, when he bothered to shave, guttered around the plug hole. A pile of bills and letters lay next to my homework. I left my textbook and absent-mindedly sorted through the letters as I thought what to do about the video saloon. I had one over on Crass, that's for sure. I knew about the copies in the basement. If he hassled me about handling the discs, I could bail him up and tell him what I knew. That'd shut him up. Perhaps I could blackmail him. Tell him I was keeping the job, and if he didn't want me to go to the police, he should just leave me alone. Man, I could make him quit. But that was wishful thinking. The best I could do was keep stringing him along and remain ambivalent by not giving him an answer. A Visa bill caught my attention. I always thought credit cards were a cool idea. Spend money you didn't have. I could buy a car tomorrow. Just having the freedom to take off whenever you want without asking Dad for a lift or waiting for the bus. The day I get my P plates, I plan to drive along the Great Ocean Road all the way to Port Ferry. Mum and Dad only took me down there once. Usually we went east along the Prince's Freeway to Lake's entrance. I can still recall every major country town we went through on that 3-hour drive: Warragul, Mo, Morwell, Traralgon, Sale, Bairnsdale. One after the other, like suburban train stations on the way to the city. Dad liked to get off the freeway and stop at one or two of the towns before we reached the coast. He said he felt guilty bypassing them. He liked the open-cut mines and the hard-working people of the towns. He even liked the huge power station outside of Mo that looked like something from Chernobyl, the nuclear reactor that caught fire in the Ukraine. I did an assignment on it once. I found the power station ugly, but Dad thought the men and women who worked there were honest and tough. My grandpa used to work in the paper mill in Traralgon before he married Nan and moved to Melbourne to work in the city as a printer. They're both dead now, but Dad always felt closer to them when we stopped in Traralgon. 51. Mum and I preferred getting to Lake's entrance as quickly as possible, Mum for the beach and me for the strawberry milkshake we got from the fish and chip shop as soon as we stopped at the caravan park. We'd been to Lake's entrance so many times every trip had faded into just a few distinct memories. The big trevally Dad caught that faked being dead until I touched it and it suddenly leapt at me, its mouth gaping and desperate and me squealing my head off. Or buying a cheap kite from the corner store and flying it in the park, only to have the string snap and the kite fly into the ocean that lapped at the park's edges. I cried so much that Dad even attempted to wade out and get the kite back. My favorite memory, though, was making a train with Mum and Dad on a giant slide in a Bairnsdale park one summer's day. The slide went down a hill and was the biggest I've ever seen. I was only 8 or 9 at the time, but I remember thinking it was like a roller coaster. I was at the front, my mum hung onto me with her bare, brown legs and my dad had his bony hands on her shoulder. Then he pushed us off too hard and we went flying down the slide, Mum screaming louder than I've ever heard her before and Dad yelling hoop hoop, until we hit the bottom, me hitting the dirt hard and Mum landing on top of me, Dad jumping off the slide and leaping over us. All of us laughing so hard as we lay in the dirt. I've never seen my parents laugh so much. Dad was actually crying with laughter because Mum's legs were up in the air and I was squashed underneath, neither of us able to move. I don't think I'll ever forget that. But I remembered our one trip along the Great Ocean Road like a movie you've seen 6 or 7 times before. I remember every detail. Every frame. The smell of salt in the air, my CD Walkman lying next to me in the car forgotten as I watched the waves hit the beach as we drove into Lorne, bouncing on the trampoline with Mum along the beach and even the flavor of the ice cream I had, rainbow with a flake chocolate bar stuck into the top. I loved the Great Ocean Road, loved the winding road along the coast and the small towns that we drove though. I wanted to go back there, but I wanted to do the driving. How old did you have to be to get a credit card? 52. I looked at the Visa bill. The credit limit for Dad was $7,500. That's huge money. I reckoned I could buy a second-hand Mazda hatchback with a thumping stereo for that. I'd never really thought about banking before. Now, with the job, I'd started to get into the whole finance thing. I had my own tax file number and pay slips and had started to study my banking statements I received every month too. Each week I'd put half my pay into a savings account. I loved to see my account gradually rise when I ripped open the bank statements. Then I noticed Dad's balance. It said the balance was $4,500. That's how much he had used on the credit card. It was a lot of money to pay back. I knew if you didn't pay off your credit card each month you had to pay interest. A lot of interest. How was Dad paying it off? How could he owe so much? I took a look at the description of payments on the bill: Coles supermarket, a bottle shop, Repco car repairs, water and gas bill, doctors, electricity bill, telephone bill, the bottle shop again. On and on. Everything was going on the credit card. And there was also a cash advance of $1,000. Taking an interest in the finances, Stace. Dad had come in from the lounge room and snuck up behind me. I jumped and dropped the Visa statement. Just wondering how it all works. It's a bit confusing. How it works is the bank says I owe a lot of money and I have to pay it back as soon as possible. Fairly simple. We owe a fair bit, don't we, Dad? I'm afraid I've let the bills creep up on us. How do we pay it off? Dad sat down and sighed. We'd never really discussed finances before. Dad did everything. Sure, he'd whinge when I needed money for clothes or an excursion or a movie, but I just thought that's what dads did. I never knew we were really poor. When we got your mum's life insurance, I paid off a lot of what we owed for the house. The rest I put into a long-term deposit account, Dad said. For you? For me? What for? 53. The future. You know, university, a car, rent and bond when you move out of home, even backpacking overseas if you wanted. Thought it'd make a nice 18th birthday present. Grandpa and Nan could never help me out much with money, they never had much spare, and your mum and I wanted to give you a good start. Gee, thanks Dad, I said, not knowing what else to say. I wanted to ask exactly how much he'd put into the account, but thought it might be pushing it. It's just a pity that money has been tight in the past year, he said, but I didn't want to touch your account. And I haven't. I know I have to get back to some decent work, and I will, so don't worry about this, hey. He picked up the bill and put it underneath the pile of letters. Dad, you can't keep using your credit card for everything, I said. Why don't you take some money out of my account to help pay it off? I don't need it right now. What? Nah, I don't want to do that. Things aren't too desperate, not yet. We'll see what happens. But, if things get too bad, I guess I could, he rubbed his head. His skin was sallow and tight and his fingernails were bitten to the quick. I knew offering money from my account meant I was letting Dad off the hook with work. But he was, and I hated saying this, probably pretty useless at work at the moment. I could still see the haunted look of Mum in his eyes. He needed another woman to look after him. I know daughters are supposed to feel all funny about their dads marrying again, but I reckon I'd welcome it. Then I wouldn't have to be the one to look after him all the time. God, this was worse than I thought. I imagined ourselves having to sell the house and living in one of the dumpy units near the secondary school where all the Social Security dropouts lived. I'd have to wear school uniforms from the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence like a couple of kids at school. The uniforms were always faded with loose bits of cotton hanging from the hems. Pavos the kids were called. One thing was for sure, that Motorola mobile phone I was looking at for Christmas wouldn't be under the tree this year. Not unless I paid for it myself. Not unless I found a better source of income and earned a bit more money. 54. And, I thought grimly as Dad slumped on the sofa and despondently turned on the TV, I knew where to get it. 55. Didn't have to wait long to tell Crass the good news. Vince rang Monday night and asked if I could work Tuesday after school. Crass couldn't make it in until 7 o'clock, so I took over from Vince until Crass had made it back. Late afternoons on a weekday were always fairly quiet. It's mainly mums on the way home from picking their kids up at primary school and lonely-looking men getting their 5 weeklies. Vince had left me a pile of discs in the return box to deal with, so I didn't have to sit around watching the store TV. By then Tops and I were fully back on best friend terms. He gave me a blow-by-blow commentary on his Medal of Honor online win against 10 rabid Nazis played by various geeks around the world. It's one of his favorite game series. You run around a World War II battlefield shooting up enemy soldiers with hand grenades and machine guns. I have no interest in the game, but faked enough enthusiasm for him to keep talking about it as we watched a Year 12 inter-school basketball game. Personally, I preferred platform or puzzle games or karaoke. They're way more fun. Killing Nazis and aliens is sort of just mindless and so boyish. Tops always complained about my choice of games when I would take console discs from the store to Tops on the weekend. Not another one of those girl games, he'd groan when I turned up with a cute, cuddly console game in my hands. The worst, for Tops anyway, was when I turned up at his house with Sky, 2 microphones, and SingStar. It's a karaoke game where you sing along to a video film clip and the game scores you out of 10,000 points for your singing ability. Raynipe was there too and groaned. "I'd feel unnatural playing that," he said when he saw the game. "It's totally for girls." The funny thing? Raynipe stood in the rumpus room holding the microphone, his eyes shut, his fists clenched and his gangly frame swinging in time as he sung. He was 56. Really good. He could actually sing in tune. Properly. He rocked. Sky and I burst into laughter when he finished. More out of shock. He scored 9,300 points, which was 2,000 more than either of us. Officially, we weren't supposed to take games for free from the store. We got half price off overnighters and games and we could take up to 3 weeklies for free. But Crass and I never paid for our overnighters or games. We just entered it in as a full credit. I was always careful to never take more than 1 or 2, though. Still, I could never really take full advantage of the free games. I must have been one of the only kids at school without either an internet connection or a games console. It was only thanks to our broken video recorder that Dad bought a cheapo DVD player. Tops didn't try to raise the topic of the video saloon that week, which made me happy. I didn't think Tops would take my news very well. I was sure he'd bring it up again though. I thought lying would be the best thing to do. Tell him I hadn't seen any evidence of pirated discs since, it must have been a once-off. Hopefully I'd be out of there with a new job or Tops would forget about it anyway. Or both. Crass came in late and mumbled something about helping his brother buy an old motorbike off a mate. He started hoeing into a vanilla slice as I got my bag to leave. I sort of hung around a bit waiting to see if he'd bring up the helping hand request he'd asked me for. He said nothing, just pointedly ignored me with his downturned mouthful of icing and custard. This is ridiculous, I thought. Now I want to help him out and Crass doesn't want to raise the subject. I hoped from foot to foot and feigned interest in a Coca-Cola promotional sign on the counter. "So, Crass, what you said about helping you out, I'm kinda interested," I eventually said, before quickly adding, "I need the money." "Helping me out with what?" he asked. "You know, selling the DVDs to customers, giving the customers packages, whatever." I still didn't exactly know what he wanted me to do. 57. "Oh, yeah, that. Sure, if I have something for you to do. I'll see what's coming up." He scoffed the rest of the vanilla slice. "Need the dosh, hey? You and me both." I gave him a forced smile. "Thanks then, see you on Saturday," I said and walked home. Boy, I thought, that was easy. The following Saturday Crass showed me a box of envelopes he kept under a bench in the back room. The box held a mix of thin yellow and white padded and sealed envelopes. They were all labeled with first names. "These are for my customers who may come in this weekend," he explained. "What they owe is written on the back of each envelope. Just take the money and throw it in the tin." He pointed to an empty Milo tin in the box. "I'm out of here Sunday afternoon so you may get a few customers in then. If they don't pick them up by Monday, I'll post them. I'll pay you $20 for helping me out." $20? It seemed like a lot of money for just handing over some envelopes. It'd take me 3 hours of work after tax to make that. "Another thing," said Crass. "Can you leave the box underneath the lunch table when you're finished? I like to keep the box out of Vince's sight." "Are you sure Vince is cool about it?" I asked. "And he's coming in Sunday night." "No worries, he's cool. He knows what I do, I just don't make a fuss about it." He pulled up his sleeves of his hooded jacket and pushed the box in a little further on the shelf. "I told him I'd stick to posting them, that's all. He doesn't like me handing them out over the counter. Anyway, I better phone a few customers who are coming in today so they know you are kosher. Kosher? Yeah, you know, you're okay. That you're in with my little business. Crass made it sound, like, totally sorted. I wondered how long this had been going on for. Obviously his customers hadn't ever asked me for packages, but I'd never seen any evidence Crass had been selling them during business hours, except for the pile of DVDs in the basement and overalls guy, that is. 58. You're not scared about getting caught? I asked him. I mean, you could get really busted if you were sprung. I remembered the video piracy warning that came up at the start of every DVD. I never took much notice, but it always sounded ominous. Nah, I'm small fry. It's just a handful of customers. Big deal. Probably get let off with a warning, that's all. Besides, I'm careful. I never have more than a handful of DVDs or games here. I've been doing it a while now and it's been easy money. The cops don't care. Haven't you been to the market? They've sold copies there for the last 2 years. If the cops cared they'd have shut them down yonks ago. Then what about the policeman who came in the other week? I said. He was talking about pirated DVDs doing the rounds at video stores, and he wanted to talk to Vince about it. Crass yawned, as if to show how boring and girly my worries were. Different thing altogether. That's all about renting out illegal DVDs in the store. Some distributors send us copies instead of originals. It happens. That's where the big money is, anyway, 'cause it's just a few guys doing it right around Australia. I was in the back sorting through some new Blu-ray discs that Vince had asked me to stick barcodes on when Crass' first customer came in later that afternoon. I recognized his voice clearly as overall guy who asked me for the cutout of Jim Carrey. Did your friend agree to help out with the business? Asked overall guy. Yeah. Thanks for the tip. Good to have her on board, Crass said. Both Crass and the customer seemed fairly oblivious to the fact I was in the back room. Overall guy must have told Crass when he saw me and Tops with the pirated disc that time. So did Crass decided to get me on board just in case I was going to squeal on him, or was that just a coincidence? I didn't know what to think. What I did know is that money was more important at this very moment. I'd made my decision. There was no use in trying to change my mind now. Feeling like a big pretender, I walked out of the back room holding the box of Blu-ray discs. Hi, I said to Crass and the customer as chirpily as I could, and taking extra effort in looking at the package overalls guy held with complete nonchalance. 59. Overalls guy hesitated for a moment, looking at Crass for confirmation that I was cool. Crass raised his eyebrows as if to say, she's cool. Present for my daughter, the man explained to me. Taking Crass' cue, he took out some of the covers and had a quick look at them, cartoons and animations. I noticed a couple of SpongeBob SquarePants discs, one of my favorite cartoons. Most of the others were Disney. Wow. They look great, he said. She'll love them. Bit cheaper than buying 10 DVDs from Kmart, hey, said Crass. Yeah. $30 each. Rip off. Wouldn't buy them. Guess I should learn how to download them instead, but I can't be buggered, overall guy said, handing over a bunch of notes. He didn't get any change back. I realized that this must be a real nice earner for Crass. Well, this is easier and better quality than downloading them. And if you're after any of the latest releases, I have them, said Crass. Or if you're after anything for yourself, he added. The customer smirked at Crass, then at me. Not sure if the wife would like that, he said, taking the package and walking out. I grimaced, not quite sure what Crass and he meant, but not liking the sound of it. Crass pocketed the money. Should help me on the way to buying that motorbike a little quicker, he said to me. The next day I was by myself for the quieter Sunday afternoon shift. I had to admit I felt slightly edgy, even a bit pumped, about the agreement to help Crass out. I'm not a risk taker, but the ball of nervousness that had been rolling around my stomach had been replaced by the electric tinge of anticipation. I was finally doing something on the edge. I wasn't boring old Stacey with the dullest life in Rosedale. I was a dealer making black money. My mum would have killed me, for sure, but what would Dad do? Nothing. I was virtually on my own now, and so I had to help myself. Half an hour into it, a guy with dark curly hair and a small birthmark under right his eye told me Colin said I may have an order for him. 60. What's your name? I asked, trying to hide the nervous tone to my voice. I'd been trying to convince myself that morning what I was doing was okay, and I'd only just succeeded. I mean, buying CDs and DVDs and console games were a total joke. Up to $100 for a few plastic discs? Rip off. How did they expect kids to buy them when they cost so much? Games cost up to 100, CDs around 30, yet they're aimed at kids like me. If the companies were so worried about people not pirating their stuff, they'd lower the price, wouldn't they? Me name's Eric, the man said to me, grinning. Don't worry about no surname. I'm not a member here. I went out the back and found his first name on one of the sealed envelopes. It felt like it only had a few DVDs inside it. On the back of the envelope Crass had scribbled. $45. Enjoy them, I said, not sure what else to say. Eric gave me a big smile. I saw the flash of a gold tooth. Then he gave me a $50 bill. Yous can keep the change, he said. Gee, thanks, I said. This was beginning to look like a lucrative business. Yeah, I sure am gonna enjoy watching these, said Eric, putting the envelope under his arm. Great, I said, not really understanding his over-enthusiasm for the movies. Eric was starting to give me the creeps. I was wearing a fairly light, tightish white t-shirt and I felt as if he had locked his eyes onto my chest. I crossed my arms defensively. He seemed to get the hint and walked out. See yous, he waved. Another two of Crass customers came in during my shift. Once, when it was fairly busy, the guy hung around the new releases until the store was empty. He was a younger guy about Crass' age. He seemed a bit nervous too, quickly paying and leaving the store with the package in his backpack. Boy, Crass must have really let his customers know that I was his new sidekick quick as. They knew who to ask. 61. Vince was due in at 6, so I hid the box under the desk in the back. There were still a few packages left, which Crass said he'd deal with Monday morning. I wondered how much Vince knew about Crass' operation. Perhaps they were splitting the profits? Or was Vince totally blind about what was going on? One thing for sure, if Vince found the box of DVDs, I was going to act dumb. Vince came in complaining, as usual. Bloody Colin, he said, making me work Sunday afternoons. Not as if I live next door, is it? I have to drive from Box Hill. Shouldn't have let him take the evening off. That's why I hired you, Stacey, so I don't have to work weekends. He took a look at Saturday's balance to see how much money we had made. 400? Ah, bloody hell, it's all going down the gurgler. I remember we used to make double that on a good Saturday. We had to have 3 kids working here. He sighed and I felt happy I'd be out of here in a couple of hours so I wouldn't have to listen to him go on all night. Vince took 2 bottles of Sprite, opened one and handed the other to me. That's for being such as a good little worker, he said. I wish Colin was as good as you. You're reliable. That's what an employer wants. Thanks for your help tonight. I took it warily and watched him carefully as he went to the back room again. What was the sudden free Sprite and encouraging words? Totally unlike Vince. Then again, Eric had put me on edge. Perhaps it was just me being super sensitive. Even so, I was glad to get out of there. Not that home was much better. Dad picked me up and I could immediately smell the stale, sweat-tinged aroma of beer on him. 2 unopened beer bottles of Carlton Draft in an otherwise empty six-pack lay on the back seat. He'd obviously been around at Dave's again. Dave the home motor mechanic was his boozy mate. My mother never really liked Dave, but since her death Dad had spent a lot of time at his bachelor pad. Dave's wife left him years ago and he never seems to hang on to his girlfriends. What did they talk about? Nothing much, if Dave's conversation was anything to go by. All he seemed to do was tell corny jokes. It was always a good excuse to do my homework or 62. Listen to music in my room when Dave came around. He reminded me of Barney from The Simpsons. "Good day?" asked Dad, reversing the car. "Yeah. Okay," I lied. I didn't think telling Dad that I'd just become part of a local pirate distribution ring would go down too well. "Anything exciting happen?" I looked out of the window at the flaky, faded Video Saloon sign. "Video Loon?" "No. Nothing out of the ordinary," I said, continuing to stare at the sign. "Just the usual." 63. Kai receives more text messages than anybody else I know. I'd only been at her house for half an hour and her mobile had beeped 3 times. Breaking off our group science assignment where we were supposed to be examining the differences between concave and convex lenses, she scrambled to read the messages. "Hey, it's Lucy, she wants to know how we're going with the assignment," Sky said after we'd been interrupted for the 3rd time. "Slowly, if at all," I said. Sky expertly punched the keypad of her phone with her thumb. "I'm just telling her we're finishing question 3, she said, repeating the message aloud she was inputting, OMGQ32HRDS. "Sky, is it possible for you to concentrate for just 10 minutes so we can get this finished?" I sighed. Sky beamed back at me, "Sure. Let's go." "Now, what was the question again?" I laughed, shaking my head. Her short bob and impish ears and liquid blue eyes made her impossible to stay mad at. "Like I said about 500 times, we're trying to think up an experiment we can use to show how convex lenses are thicker in the middle than the ends. With spoons." "What?" I said, throwing the pen down. "Does the experiment have something to do with spoons?" "We already did that in class. To show how light bends. A spoon is not a convex shape, anyway." "God, Sky, you're such a bimbo sometimes." Sky, as she often did when I got angry at her, changed the subject by picking up her MP3 player. "You know, this is 2 gigs but I can only fit, like, 400 songs on it." "That's not much, is it?" she asked, concerned. "It's, like, full already and I've only had it 2 months. 64. I didn't say anything. I just gave Sky the stare. "Oakman Stace," she said when she realized I wouldn't bite. "We been at this for ages. I'm stuffed. I need a few biscuits or a bowl of popcorn, something to eat." "Oh yeah," I said with mock horror, "it's been over 20 minutes. I forgot, you suffer cerebral brain hemorrhages if you study for over half an hour straight." Sky looked hurt. "You shouldn't make fun like that, Stacey. You know my uncle died of a brain hemorrhage," she said quietly. "He was in terrible pain." I didn't know what to say. "Oh, I didn't know," I mumbled. Suddenly her face lit up. "Got ya," she laughed. "I don't even have an uncle." I grabbed a pillow from her bed and gave her a whack over the head with it and she went into hysterics. "You should have seen your face," she said as I kept hitting her. It was all, like, my God, what did I just say? I've just totally devastated my best friend. In the end Sky got her way, as usual, and we ended up sitting at her kitchen counter eating extra creamy ice cream with chocolate topping and magic sprinkles. "How much money would it take for you to go out with Eric Marshall?" Sky asked as we licked the spoons clean. Sky often asks silly questions like this, what if, or how much, or would you? Questions. We'd be sitting eating lunch and she asked us, if you could have cosmetic surgery on any one part of your body, where would it be? Or what if Huffy asked you to sing the national anthem by yourself in front of assembly in return, for like, top marks in science? Would you do it? When I first met her I thought she asked stupid questions because she was, in fact, pretty stupid, but I've since discovered it's her way of dragging personal information out of shut-up people like myself. She is sometimes vague and silly, but she's a good friend to have. She talks more than she listens and possibly has attention deficiency disorder, but she takes in a lot. I predict she'll be a counselor or psychologist when she's older. How much have you got? I said, chasing a puddle of syrup around the bowl. 'Cause I would never go out with Eric. 65. I'd do it for $300, Sky said. As long as I didn't have to, you know, go the grope or anything. Come off it, Sky. That's completely wrong. He's gross. I wouldn't even hold hands with Eric, even for $1,000. Gee, I thought you were, like, short of cash. You're fussy. How about Peter then? Who, Tops? I said, knowing exactly who she was talking about. I knew where this was leading, one of Sky's regular incursions into the very unromantic life of Stacey Fallon. She was always trying to get me to describe just what my feelings were like for Tops. I think it was a constant source of amusement for her that a 15-year-old girl could have a boy as such a good friend. I'd ask for a four-figure sum, at least, I said, hoping she'd change the subject. No way, you two would make a great couple. Sky said. Yeah, he's no Zac Efron, but he's funny, he's friendly, and he's rich. I've told you about 100 times, Sky, I just don't like him that way. But you're practically best friends. How many girls are best friends with a guy? Sky, I don't know how many times I've told you this, but Peter, Tops, he's a nice guy, but you know, when I get interested in a guy I want him to be more, I dunno, exciting. Tops is into computers and electronics and geeky stuff. He's going to turn out just like his dad, you know, he'll probably work in an office his whole life and live in Rosedale and never move. And what's wrong with Rosedale? Cut in, Sky. Yes, Sky, I know you think this place is like Disneyland, but when I get a guy I want him to get me out of here. I want someone who's gonna take me places, on an adventure. You don't need to travel to have an adventure, said Sky, licking her spoon. Yeah, I don't want a boring guy either, but Tops isn't like that. I like him. Then perhaps you should go out with him, I said. Maybe I will, said Sky, arching her eyebrows at me. 66. Good. You can send me an invite to the wedding, now can we get on with our assignment please? I'm tired and I've got to go home and cook soon. At that moment I felt like a total mom, babysitting and telling off Sky, cooking for my dad, hassles with money. Wasn't this what a mother was supposed to do? One thing for sure, I was going to have an adventure when I reached 18, with or without a guy. Right now the most exciting thing to ever happen to me was handing out pirated discs in a dumpy video store. In a way, perhaps it was something I was looking for, something to break the monotony of life at home with Dad. Who knows, that's perhaps why girls fall for guys like Crass. Sure, deep down we know they're really just losers and nothing we can do will change that, but they offer a thrill that guys like Tops never can. They offer a life beyond cooking spaghetti pasta and group assignments and working dead-end jobs in weekends. They give you something to look forward to, they offer an escape. Not that I liked Crass, at all, but I can understand why other girls might. Sky plonked herself on her bed as I opened the textbook for the 20th time that evening. Why do we have to learn the difference between a convex and concave anyway? Sky asked as she smothered herself with a pink, frilly pillow. I dunno, I said, truthfully. We just have to. That's a stupid reason, said Sky. Sometimes there isn't a reason why we have to do things, I said. They just have to be done. 67. Could feel my blue checkered school dress sticking to my back as sweat patches broke out in random blotches like islands on a map. My bag felt so heavy I had to sit down, but I thought Eric may suddenly appear from the park, so I kept on, half walking, half running to Kohl's. As I ran through the car park I almost ran into an elderly woman carrying two green, environmentally friendly shopping bags. She must have noticed my pale face or the slight panic in my eyes. "Sorry," I mumbled, inadvertently clutching at her shoulder for support. "Are you all right, dear? Is anything wrong?" she asked. "You look off color." "No, fine, it's okay," I said, even though I felt like yelling at her that no, I wasn't okay. That I hated men. Hated them. I was sick of the whole lot of them. I wanted to scratch their eyes out, beat them around the head and yell, "It is not your right to sew this to me. You can't treat me like trash. Do you?" Smash head against wall, under, slap across face, stand. Throw bloodied pulp body across footpath. I had been walking home from school, it's about half an hour and sometimes I enjoy the peace, and was cutting through Jubilee Park next to the bowling green. I was having a rather ridiculous daydream about Ms. Adams, our English and literature teacher, announcing to the class my argumentative essay on capital punishment would be shortlisted for the Victorian Schools essay competition. We'd received entry forms a few weeks back, but I hadn't entered anything yet, and probably wouldn't, when a customer who had given me a sleazy grin after picking up one of Crass' packages suddenly appeared at my shoulder. I was so caught up in my daydream I didn't even hear him approach. I didn't say anything, but immediately looked around to see we were the only two people in the park and I still had about 5 minutes of fast-paced walking until I reached Kohl's, which backed onto the road that ran past the park. 68. "Hey," he leered. He had patchy hair stuck to his scalp and a fat gut that strained under his wrinkled yellow polyester shirt and looked every bit the sleazebag. The gold tooth didn't help. "Hello," I said, coldly. "Say, you know, it's really good to see you again and, man, you deserved that $5 tip for those films. You do a great job, so I thought I'd give you something else." He reached into his tight jeans pocket, fumbled around for a second, then took out a $20 note and handed it to me. "That's too much, the $5 was generous enough," I said. $20? What sort of weirdo hands out $20 in a park to a teenage girl? There was no way I was going to take it. I tried to quicken my pace to give him the hint I didn't want anything to do with him. God, what was his problem? "Hey, just go ahead and take it," said Eric, walking after me. I was almost tempted to take it just to fleece the sleazebag out of more money. I held up my hand to him and told him to take it back. He held it out for a few moments more before pushing it back into his pocket. "So, you do anything after school usually," he said. "Sorry," I said. "You know, you have a boyfriend or anything." I wasn't sure what he was trying to get at, but thought it better to lie. Yes, I do. We've been going out a long time." "Lucky guy. I bet you're a good kisser, hey?" Eric laughed, quickening his pace so he was walking next to me. He was wearing cheap aftershave. He smelled like a lolly shop. "That's none of your business," I said with just a touch of venom. He got the hint. "Oh, right, okay," he said, once he realized I didn't want to continue with the conversation. "I guess I'll be seeing ya around then." I kept walking, too scared to glance around to see if he was following. I remember my cousin Mindy telling me about getting chatted up when she was working at Just Jeans last year. I had told her I was looking for a job and she told me. 69. Retail stores were loads better than supermarkets and fast food restaurants. It was the reason I applied for the job at the video saloon. You don't need to work as hard and you get out right on closing time, she said. But then, you get more weirdos, for sure. She said a short, bald guy with a bad comb-over and a stubby pig face had once come into the store and she'd gone and made one bad mistake. I was friendly and asked him if he needed any help. Then I went on to recommend the Levi red tabs because they were my favorite jeans. The mistake? The guy had obviously never had a girlfriend his entire life and had become completely desperate. He thought I was chatting him up. The guy had asked for her phone number. When Mindy had refused, he left, only to turn up the next day to ask her to the cinema. She told him to get lost. She wasn't a pushover, she always spoke her mind, so I could imagine her tone was pretty forceful. So he left, but then turns up the next day and just watches her. Sits at a seat near the store for about an hour. She just ignored him. Finally, when she spotted him following her to the car park, she called security, who gave him a bit of a push and a slap. He got the message and never went near Just Jeans again. He really did think I was interested in him, right up to the moment security kicked his fat arse out of the shopping center, Mindy said. Mindy was right about the weirdos, anyway. I'd met enough of them and I'd only been at the video saloon 3 months. I'd just about reached the edge of the park when I heard footsteps running up to me. Hard, urgent slaps on the concrete. It was Eric again, struggling to run a few dozen paces. For one horrible moment I thought he was going to attack me. I could imagine it, the screaming, the hair pulling, getting dragged back towards the empty lawn bowls club. I felt my stomach cramp up and I involuntarily hunched my shoulders. Hey, 1 minute, Eric said. I was half torn between dumping my bag and running for it or just screaming, but Eric didn't grab me. Instead he stood in front of me. Traffic was coming down the road, so surely he wouldn't try anything? You ever want to make a little extra money? He asked. I could do with some company. You know, go out for dinner and stuff? I'm pretty easygoing, yeah. No, I said, I don't think so, I've got to get home now. 70. Kman, Eric said, I just want a little company, you know, someone young and sweet like you, just to hang out. No. I yelled, frightening myself with the forcefulness in my voice. He seemed startled as he left me to cross the road. Once I was across and almost at Kohl's, I heard him yell out angrily, "Use is just a friggin' teaser." I kept walking. A teaser? What the hell was he talking about? I felt real fear build up inside me and I started to shake and sweat, and then I ran into the old lady. Home was only 5 minutes away, but I felt safer here in the shopping center. I couldn't understand what Eric had wanted, and why. Why did he think a 15-year-old would ever want anything from such an ugly, creepy old guy? Are you sure you're all right? You really don't look 100%, said the lady, her cold hands on my shoulder. You look a little sick. I tried to give her a reassuring smile. It's no problem, I'll be right, just a bit of a pain in the stomach, I said, gently shaking her off and walking towards home. I told Tops about it on the phone as soon as I got home. I desperately needed someone to talk to and Dad was working that afternoon, so I didn't feel safe by myself either. Tops said he'd come around. I only told him a half-truth. That some customer who I had only seen once before had tried to chat me up in the park. Boy, did it make you freak or what? Asked Tops as we sat on my bed listening to the radio. He was just an idiot, that was all. We were in the park, so I didn't feel that safe. You should tell the cops, for sure, get him reported. If he's a member, you could get his contact information. I can't remember his name, I've only seen him once before, I lied, not wanting to go any further. I knew Tops would go totally ape if he found out about I was helping Crass with his pirating. 71. Gee, nice to have an admirer, Tops said. Perhaps he'll send Interflora flowers to school next. He got the message, I said. He won't bother me again. Why don't you report it to the police? It'd be a hassle and nothing would happen, that's why. He only tried to ask me out, as freakish as that sounds. Can't say I blame him, someone as gorgeous as you, laughed Tops. I smiled. He was about the only guy I knew I'd consider dating, that's for sure. Thanks Tops, I said, giving him a hug, something I don't do too often. It's difficult enough trying to keep just friends without leading him on. Tops let the hug go on a little longer than I would have liked. I pulled away and I think he realized what he'd done. He immediately stood up and turned up the volume of my little Sanyo portable stereo player. I'll fry his stinkin' ass if he tries something like that again, he said in his best Robert De Niro voice. You're my hero, Tops. Tops smiled. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Crass didn't mention anything more about helping him out with the DVDs at work, but I saw a small box underneath the desk out the back with a handful of packages in them. 2 of them were sealed, bubble-wrapped packages. They were exactly the same as the packages I'd given Eric. There was something about what Eric had said that made me think there were more than just Will Smith films in those envelopes. It was the way he had treated me, as if I was leading him on because of something I'd said or done. I's just a friggin' teaser. What was that supposed to mean? A teaser? Why would someone think I was interested in them just because I gave them some pirated DVDs? What was the connection? I wondered if it, in some roundabout way, had anything to do with the packages. 72. I waited until Tops had gone to the bakery and then went to examine the box. I took out a yellow envelope and noticed the flap was only lightly stuck on. I could almost lift it up without tearing it or leaving a mark. I grabbed a knife from the sink and found it sliced through the sticky substance on the envelope easily. I looked inside and saw a stack of about 10 DVDs in slimline cases. They looked like the DVDs I had seen in the basement, Scarlett Johansson's latest, a horror, something about a psycho scarecrow that we had in the store, a comedy I'd actually seen in the cinema a few months ago, and a bunch of films I'd never heard of. All of them obviously copied. I restuck the envelope flap down and took out one of the padded envelopes that were similar to the one I had given sleazebag Eric. Why the padded envelope? Was there a difference between these and the yellow envelopes? It was well stuck down. There was no way I'd manage to open it without tearing the entire flap. I looked at the other padded envelope and noticed it hadn't been sealed properly. In fact, the flap still had the protective paper covering the seal. Crass had obviously forgotten to seal it. I opened it and peered inside to see about 4 DVDs with an elastic band around them. Keeping an ear out for Crass, I slid the DVDs out of the envelope. These were pirated too, but they weren't videos we rented. Bikini Girls Go Wild, and When Good Girls Go Bad, screamed the lurid yellow titles. The covers were full of blonde bimbos in small, tight bikinis. They all had breasts that bulged out of their bikini tops like basketballs. They were either shouting or pouting at the camera. Crass obviously had a sideline in bimbo films. Eric must have thought it was a turn-on to get this junk from a young girl. I was so mad at Crass. Not only were the videos pirated, they were totally sleazy. I seethed for the next half hour until Crass returned with his ridiculously huge gym bag. I grunted when he told me he had my money from last weekend. I knew I should have never got involved in this. I was mad at Crass and doubly mad at myself. Did all right last week, Crass said, handing me over $40. Haven't sold that many for ages. You didn't tell me what type of DVDs they were. 73. What do you mean? Latest releases, mainly. A few old school comedies from the store. Some games. Why? Because one load of DVDs slipped out of their envelope, and I was lying here because I didn't want to say I'd been snooping, and I saw what they were. Stupid bikini girls with fake boobs that all look like stupid Pamela Anderson. Crass went silent. Ah, yeah, right. Well, you know, he mumbled, fidgeting with the cash in his hands. Men love it. Call it a weakness. If you saw the but ugly wives some of them have to put up with, well, you'd understand. I feel sorry for some of 'em. Who, I thought, the men or their wives? I said, if you want to deal with sleaze, I guess it's up to you. Do what you want, but I don't want to help you anymore. It's disgusting. One of the customers even tried to chat me up. I think I'll leave it to you from now on. Hey, Stacey, it's sweet money. All you have to do is. I cut him off quickly. I don't like selling creepy films to creepy customers. I'm not interested anymore, crass. Just leave me alone to work here without having to deal with that sort of thing. Kman, it's all about supply and demand. That's what the guys want. It's not as if, crass, sensing I was really peed off, suddenly gave up. Sure, have it your way then, he said, stacking a pile of returns on the counter and scanning them in. Like I said though, Stace, there's lots of others who are. Lots of others who are what? Interested in helping me out. Oh, grow up you little idiot, I thought. Another threat about replacing me with plastic fantastic Tony? Go ahead and try it. I'll just give the police a little tip-off about your hobby. Crass basically ignored me the rest of the night. If he thought I was going to quit, though, he was wrong. I can be real stubborn, that's for sure, and I was determined to stay here and collect my wages and not give in to Crass. There was nothing he could do now. I knew too much. 74. Okaying back, it probably wasn't a great idea for Dad and I to go shopping for shoes after school. We were both in irritable moods, and for both of us work was to blame. I was no longer shaken at what happened at the park, I was just really angry for getting involved in the whole sleazy piracy thing. Dad was just plain angry. He'd got a speeding fine a few days earlier driving to work and he was still seething, everything he said dripped with a potent mix of anger and self-pity. He ranted on about us living in a police state where everyone had to be punished like little children and that speeding fines was all about the government grabbing money off poor buggers like himself. Geez, work was boring today, he said the minute he picked me up outside school. He didn't even ask me how my day was. Spent the morning sorting through excess stock out the back, there was hassles with builders, and the whole day's pay is going to pay for that damn speeding fine. What a load of crap. You don't need to go on about the fine anymore, I said, staring out the window as we drove the shopping center. I didn't feel like any of his work-related sob stories today. Oh sorry, I mean, it's only a whole day's wages gone, he said, a look of grim death on his face. And if I have to take any more crap from my manager? Well, maybe if you hadn't quit as a manager yourself, I mumbled, instantly regretting it. Dad said nothing, gripping the steering wheel tighter to control himself from exploding. He scratched his leg, which must have been itching because he was wearing his jeans and not his tracksuit pants for once. He never did like jeans. We drove the rest of the way in silence except for the blaring car stereo that Dad had decided to crank up as loud as his cold chisel cassette tape could go. I just said nothing. Cassette tapes. I mean, what a joke. This car was a joke. And he was the biggest joke of all. Man, I was angry. I could get in some angry moods sometimes, but Dad was 75. Usually the last one to cop it. I knew what he had gone through after Mum died and I was still pretty patient with him. But I didn't feel like being Little Miss Nice today. Things didn't get much better at the skate and surf store. I wanted some flat sole skate shoes, specifically Vans, because even though I love my leather ankle boots, they killed my feet when I had to stand up all day at work. Vans were comfortable but they looked cool on girls too. Unfortunately they were over $100, which for someone who only wore discounted builder's boots or thongs like Dad was the equivalent of eating at one of Gordon Ramsay's 5-star restaurants instead of McDonald's. Come off it, Stacey, You can't be serious, said Dad when I tried them on. He had immediately asked how much they were. I told you the other day I'm watching the money, and after the speeding fine too, and you go and think you can buy these. Yeah Dad, don't go and blow your hard drive, geez. I said I'd pay for half of it. I knew you wouldn't pay for it all anyway. Dad stood there, hands in his pockets, looking faintly ridiculous, slouched over with music pumping and a group of grommets wearing full skate gear pushing each other around in the background. He really looked like he'd rather be at Dave's. I didn't care. I wanted the Vans. It's still too much, he whinged. What's wrong with Kmart? As if, I said, these are for work and I'm not wearing Kmart shoes at work. I'm not in primary school anymore. And I'll pay for them all anyway, so don't worry about it. I can handle it. A sales assistant with highlights in her blonde hair and a cute smile came over to ask if we needed any help. I love Vans, they are like the most comfortable shoes, she said. They will last you forever too. Guaranteed. You'd want them too at that price, growled Dad. It's worth it, said the girl, they're quality shoes. Whatever you reckon, he grumbled. He turned and walked out of the store. The store assistant gave me a grin. Parents, she said, you can't live with them, you can't sell them on eBay. 76. Yeah, I'd only get a few dollars for him anyway, I said, taking the Vans off. So then, the Vans, said the girl. Oh, I'm taking them, I said. That's what I like to hear, she laughed. I made sure I swung the plastic bag with the Vans in them as if it was a Gucci handbag, wanting everyone to see that I had just spent $120 of my own money on a pair of shoes without any help from my deadbeat father. He just snorted when he saw them. We walked to the car and I made a big deal of getting the box out of the car and examining the white and pink Vans in minute detail. These are so cool, I said, with mock enthusiasm. These are most awesome shoes, and so worth it. Such a good price, I think I should have bought two. What do you think, Dad? Can't you shut it, he said, looking dead straight ahead. I shut up after that. It was the worst fight my dad and I had had for a long time. He never told me to shut up, and I was rarely such a smart arse. I was on a roll. First the argument with Tops, then Crass, now Dad. A hat trick. What a winner I was turning out to be. I didn't know what to do when I got home. I just knew I didn't want to be around Dad. So I stayed in my room and listened to music and read, trying to get those words out of my head. Shut it. Ugly. That would take a while to wash off. I could sulk with the best of them. I wasn't going to forgive him for saying that, not for a long time. Even if it meant getting up for breakfast early and leaving school before he woke, or going to Skies every night for a week and coming home late, I'd avoid him. Let him cook his own dinner and we'd see how much he liked toasted cheese sandwiches. Perhaps I could leave some recipe books out for him, circling the easiest recipes. Like scrambled eggs. Let him get the hint that I was done with him. That'd shut him up. I heard the front door slam and the car start up. He was going to Dave's, for sure. One day he was going to get caught by a police breathalyzer. Then we'd see how much he liked spending his money when got some huge fine. At least I was alone now and 77. Could go and watch TV. But Dad had never just stormed out of the house without saying something, no matter how mad he was. After a few minutes I walked out into the kitchen. On the table was a note. As I suspected, it said, "Gone to Dave's." Backlight scrawled in black pen. Underneath the note I saw the corner of a $20 note. I lifted up the note and saw there was a bunch of notes. I counted them. $120 exactly. I sorted the notes out neatly and held them in my hand. Almost a weekend's pay, after tax. Should I keep it? I deserved it. I mean, Dad probably spends that much on booze every second week. I even unconsciously smelled the notes as I thought about it. The notes stank, like a stale cupboard opened for the first time in months. Why did money smell so bad? Wasn't it just paper? Money stinks. After a few moments thinking, I left the money back on the table and went and got a bowl of Nutri-Grain. I could pay my own way. 78. New tops would eventually raise the whole piracy thing. It was during an Australian history class. Ms. Levant had to rush back to the staff room to collect her teacher's study help book, aka answer book. We were studying the Eureka Stockade and she had forgotten exactly why it had started. She was always doing that. Rushing back to the staff room for something she had forgotten. Some kids said it was because she needed a cigarette, which she'd puff secretly in her office. Apparently, she smokes 2 packets of Winfield Blues a day. She sure smelled like it. Her fingers were stained the color of honey and her teeth were off-white. I didn't blame her though. If I had to control 30 kids every hour, 5 days a week, I'd smoke too. So, how's life at the Loon? Tops asked. I had Sky sitting next to me on the other side and didn't really want to share too much information in class. Yeah, it's sorted, I said. Doesn't seem to be much going on. There was no way I could tell him about my decision, even though it had only lasted 1 weekend, to help Crass out. You haven't seen anything more in the basement? No. Haven't been down there. It must have been a one-off. I noticed he was being cautious with his questions, not wanting to get back into the same argument as before. I thought I could make him lose interest if I didn't give him any decent feedback. What do you think Crass and Vince did with the discs? He said, leaning even closer to me and whispering so Sky couldn't hear. Hey you two, no getting it on in class. Eric Marshall, resident idiot, suddenly shouted, pointing us out to the rest of the class. Man, they were getting it on. Honest truth. The entire class let out a prolonged and high-pitched whoa. "K'man Tops you stud, leave it for the bedroom," cried out Chris Noel. 79. Hey Tops, you're my main man, laughed Will, who was sitting on the other side of Tops. He punched Tops on the shoulder. And with the stack Eamon too. Tops looked genuinely pleased. Hey, you've got to get it any way you can, he laughed. I said, what's that supposed to mean? I hated being the spotlight in class, but it was probably a good thing to have happened. The subject of the video saloon was abruptly cut short. I let the rest of the class fall into a slanging match about who was kissing whom and who wanted to get it on with whom. I'd tell Tops one day. About the video saloon, that is. I'd just make sure I was safely in another job before I did. No way did I want the added pressure of Tops telling me to quit, or worse, trying to convince me to tell the police what was happening. Ms. Levant returned to happily announce to us that did we know that the Eureka Stockade rebel leader Peter Lalor, who had his left arm amputated as a result of the battle, became a well-respected politician, but in an awful twist, both his children committed suicide in his house in Richmond where he also died and the whole family are said to haunt the residence. She was extremely happy with herself until Julia Carapellotti, who never let a teacher get away with anything, asked, but Ms. Levant, I still don't understand. How did the Eureka Stockade actually start? Ms. Levant's face fell. I'll be back in a moment, she said and left the room again. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. I was more than happy to discover that Crass seemed to have forgotten about my decision to snub his little piracy business. I walked in Saturday afternoon to find the place fairly humming. Melbourne had had a cold snap and it was one of those days where the sky had the drab grayness of a school jumper and you knew it would basically not stop raining for the rest of the day. That's when the video saloon got really busy. 80. I often wondered why Vince bothered hiring 2 people for the weekend, but at times like this you'd struggle by yourself. Saturday was the busiest day. There had to be at least 40 DVDs and videos in the return bin, another stack of returns waiting to be shelved, and a big list of reservations in the reservation book. The reservations were the biggest hassle of the job. Someone would ring up, usually when you were in the middle of serving another customer, and ask for that film where that black guy fought androids or that blonde chick falls in love with the baseball player, and you'd have to remember the title and check if it was in, and then if it wasn't you'd take the person's name and number, and then you'd have to make sure you reserved a copy when it came in. It also meant phoning the customer to tell them it had arrived. Unlike Blockbuster, we didn't have 30 copies of the one title, so it meant we had to deal with a fair few reservations. I had only come unstuck once. I was asked to reserve a Nicole Kidman supernatural thriller. A copy was returned, but before I could even scan it, another customer saw it in the return pile and asked for it. We had around 6 copies due for return that night, but I still thought I better call the woman who originally reserved it first. Nobody answered, although admittedly I only let it ring a half dozen times. I then rented it out. Of course, with my bad luck, no other copy of the film was returned on time. At 8 o'clock the woman who'd originally reserved rang and wanted to know if a copy had come in. I'm not sure why I'd admitted it, perhaps because of her psycho voice, but I told her one had come in, only I'd rented it out again. I tried phoning you but there was no answer, I said. She didn't sound pleased. She said she'd wait until another copy came in, which it did, an hour later. The woman turned out to be one of those fat, demanding old bags who always look like their husband had spent the weekly wage at the pokies. The type who complain at McDonald's if their fries are cold or if you even dare to whisper in the cinema. It's now 9 o'clock, almost too late to watch anything, she whinged. I don't know why I bothered to come down and pick it up at all. I was really looking forward to it as well. 81. Again, I tried to explain to her I'd given her a call, but she told me she'd been sitting by the phone all evening, waiting for my call, and it had definitely not rung at the time I'd claimed to have phoned. Sitting by the phone? Was she that excited about renting the film? Nicole Kidman is cool, but worth sitting on the couch stuffing your face with Doritos as you wait for the phone to ring? I don't think so. Look, I think you're lying, she told me when I gave her the video. I don't think you phoned me at all. You think I'm lying? I had spluttered, my face blushing. What else could I say? I was so angry I charged her the full rental, even though she obviously expected me to give it to her for free. Still, besides her, Robert Kepler and Sleazy Eric, I haven't had too many problems with customers. I noticed, as I was collecting a few old videos from the back, that the box of DVDs from under Vince's desk had gone. Later that afternoon when the place had quietened down, Crass walked out of the store. I'm going for a ciggy, he said. Be back in a few minutes. I let him go and finished dusting the rather neglected special interests section. It was full of old WWE wrestling and Rex Hunt fishing DVDs. For some reason the store collected dust like Top's younger sister collected Bratz dolls. If a DVD had been languishing on the shelf for longer than a week, it was usually covered in a thin layer of dust, and I enjoyed cleaning them all up, making them look used. I felt sorry, for some strange reason, for DVDs nobody wanted to rent anymore. I had just started on the action aisle when the phone rang. The Video Saloon is a big store and I had to run to catch it. Hello Video Saloon, Stacey speaking, I said, puffed. Silence. Hello. I could hear a whirring sound, like a spinning top, but nobody said anything. It was a bit freaky. Then whoever it was hung up. 82. A customer walked in and I put the call to the back of my mind. A lot of kids who should have been studying for final exams came in to hire 5 weeklies or take out Disney films for babysitting jobs. They all said hello. That was the good thing about the Video Saloon, you became well known at school. You doing anything tonight? Crass asked me out of the blue later that evening as he ate Chinese sweet and sour from a plastic container. No, I'm going straight home. Why? Are you? I wish. Tony, the girl who was here last week, is going clubbing in the city tonight. I'd kill to go with her. Why don't you? 'Cause I have to lock up here. I won't be finished until 10:30. I wouldn't get in their way past midnight. By then she'll be half smashed. I looked at my watch. 8:30 p.m. I finished in half an hour when my dad usually picked me up. I lived about 20 minutes walk away and Dad didn't like me walking home late at night. Maybe you could leave early, I suggested. Lock up at 9. Nah, Vince would get aggro if he found out. Crass had to stay behind and count the money, print out the daily activity sheet and balance the till. I wasn't allowed to lock up by myself. I'd locked up a few times with Crass when Dad was running late, so I knew how to do it. I'd sure get on Crass' good side if I let him hook up with Tony. Crass had the same idea. Stacey, do you think you could help me out? You know what to do. Could ya lock up tonight? I dunno Crass, I've never had to do it myself. Crass became stuck on the idea. No problems, he said, you don't even need to print out the activity sheet. Just leave the computers on. I'm in early tomorrow anyway. I can do it then. It wasn't the locking up that was worrying me. It was being by myself in the store late at night. 83. C'mon Stacey, it's easy as. I really did want to smooth things over with Crass, so I relented and said I'd do it, but only this once. He was out the door an hour later. Thanks dude, he waved as he ran out to Main Street. I hoped he was happy I was letting him get off his face with Tony. Who knew what those two would get up to? I went to give my dad a call on my mobile and discovered the battery had died again. I'd left it on all night and forgot to charge it, and the battery was dodgy anyway. It barely lasted a day. I phoned him from the store phone and asked him to pick me up after 10. I didn't tell him I was locking up. He'd freak. I told him it was so busy Crass asked me to stay with him to help shelve returned discs. Okay, I'll drop by at Dave's first, bit of car trouble, he said. I reckoned they'd be downing a few stubbies instead. The car, which actually was in need of a service, was an excuse. Nobody came in at all after 9:30. I put on an old Britney Spears movie, Crossroads, and watched it for the 10th time. Other girls at school hated the movie, but I thought it was fun. I sang along with I Love Rock and Roll. It took my mind off the fact I was alone. I stopped the movie close to 10 o'clock, emptied the bins, turned the lights out at the front of the store and locked the big glass door. I left the keys in the inside lock of the front door. I'd seen Crass do that. You don't want to lock yourself in and then lose the keys. Then I put the money on the counter and began to sort out the bills and coins. $200 had to be put back in the register for tomorrow's float, the rest was for Crass to count. I only had to bag the money and hide it under the counter. I began to feel more comfortable about being alone, although I would have felt better if Tops was here. I should have asked him to cycle down and keep me company. I folded the bills and coins and put them in a bag. Then the phone rang. The shrill ring echoed around the store and gave me such a shock I put my hand over my mouth and said, "Oh." It sounded so much louder in the quietness of the store. 84. Who would be phoning me at this time? I thought it was Dad or a customer wanting to know if we were still open. I picked up the phone. Video Saloon, Stacey speaking. Silence. Just like the call from earlier this evening. I felt myself stiffen with fear. My hand gripped the telephone so tightly my fingers turned white. Hello? Is anyone there? Again, silence. Then, just as I was about to put the phone down, a hoarse voice whispered almost inaudibly, "Be afraid, be very afraid."